welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work at MEC Sharks and on Twitter at Sheng_Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find me on Twitter at halfwall_hockey, at my website, half-wallhockey.com, or at San Jose Hockey Now. This week, Sheng, what's going on this week?
Things are just going great in San Jose. The Sharks are 0-10-1. And so to mark that occasion, we thought that it was about right to have a mailbag for everybody to vent and everybody to just let it out, get it all out. And anyway, I think that we all need this. You need this probably. The fans, Keegan, you probably need this,
I need
and
this.
I probably could use this too. Actually, yeah, we should have had we should be taking shots along with this too. Game 11 into the season, so
Definitely also need this. I feel like a dejected, kind of like a dog that's been left at a pound for too long that needs to get adopted, or else it's going to just have those very sad puppy dog eyes. That's what I feel like every time I watch the Sharks.
adoption in the form of a W.
Yeah, exactly. I need that one the one win. And also
BMW to pull into the adoption parking lot.
I also just need to not be beaten by 8 to 9 goals every night.
So okay. Well,
maybe 2 or 3, maybe 1, maybe an overtime. I don't know, anything. A shootout. I don't even care. Like just something that isn't losing.
This reminds me, actually, if I can interject and also promote colleagues' work. James Nichols of New Jersey Hockey Now, covering the Devils, great work. He asked me, he wanted to kind of get an update of how Sharks are doing, or I'm sorry, how former Devils are doing around, around the league. And obviously the Sharks have a couple former Devils in Blackwood and Zetterlund. And I told him this was when the Sharks were 0-9-1, but I think I wrote something like, well, imagine the Sharks didn't have Zetterlund and Blackwood. Blackwood is responsible for the lone point this season, 51 save game. And Zetterlund leads the Sharks with 3 goals.
Great. Yeah, literally we are being ballooned by the cast-offs of the New Jersey Devils. That's
exactly. At one point. He came from New Jersey in the Timo Meier trade. Well, it's not Blackwood, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh man, that's very sad to think about. So this week we're doing a subscriber mailbag. That's kind of the last time we did this. We had a lot of optimism. I think we talked a lot about prospects. We talked about shifting lines and like training camp predictions, all sorts of fun things. This week it's going to be a little sad. I will say that up front. It's probably going to be very sad, but we will try and make it as uplifting as possible and give you some good answers to your questions.
I don't know how to make it uplifting, but
I don't know. Smile and wave a lot. It'll be fine.
Before we start, though, actually, I'm going to forget this at the end, so I'm just going to mention it now. So this is a subscriber mailbag. So there are a few users, commenters who drop questions, and I can't tell in our system that if you're a subscriber or not. And so if you are a subscriber, like I said the last time we did this, let me know. You can email me, you can message me on Twitter, you can do all kinds of ways to let me know that you are a subscriber, and then I will answer the question. Keegan and I will answer your question personally, or we'll answer it on the next podcast episode. And so anyway, so for users whose questions we will not get to, just get this out of the way. T. Euchre, saying that to myself, making sure that wasn't anything off color that I shouldn't say on the air, like the Simpsons or something like that.
Yeah. Icy wiener.
Yeah, T. Euchre here. T. Euchre. 2 different Pauls according to their email addresses, and a Frank. So anyway, guys, if you are indeed a subscriber, we missed your question. Sorry about that. Please let us know. But let's get to it.
Yeah, and honestly, I think a couple of those people were going to answer your questions and other people's questions.
That's true. Yes.
And also apologies again to people who responded on Twitter. Have to respond on the San Jose Hockey Now.
It just makes it easier for us to figure out. So, yeah. Like if you're a subscriber or not.
Anyway, before we get into it, let's just remember the start of this season, because I don't think it will hopefully ever get worse than this. The Sharks were, like you said, 0-10-1. They start off the NHL record worst goal differential through 11 games in NHL history, which is amazing, fantastic. And then they also had 2 back-to-back games where they let in 10 goals, which has not happened since
First time,
1965.
yeah.
So
I thought
it
it was
is
the
a
50s. Is
historic.
it the 60s?
1965 was the Bruins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then it's only happened 4 times total. So
Okay. And then the
they were
worst
bad
goal differential ever is
through 11 games.
minus. I know. I'm talking for a full season.
Oh, I
Is
don't know.
minus 265,
Wow.
which is the Washington Capitals in 1974-75, the expansion Washington Capitals. And I believe the Sharks are on pace to surpass that. They are actually. They are on pace to surpass that. And so let's not surpass that.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's get into the questions and stop talking about how horrible the Sharks are, because a lot of these questions will be
Because
about
we're going to
how
be doing a lot of that on this
horrible
episode.
the Sharks are. All right, the first one's actually lighthearted and
Yes.
kind of fun. It comes from Alaskan Ice, Sheng and Keegan.
Thank you, Alaska, for your positivity through all these years.
Always positive.
Always
Always
positive.
positive.
Always positive.
Very, very nice. You both do the stuff. It's a job, but as hockey guys, have you ever had a geek out moment during your interviews? Is it hard at times to stop being a fan and looking at this as work? Ooh. Well, Shang, why don't you start? Because you so full disclosure, I do this as kind of like a side job. I do have my own job as well, but I do view this in some ways as
job.
work. I have a real big boy job, but I do this as well for as a job as well.
But
so.
you have actually, your experiences might be, I'll get to mine in a second, but your experiences might be actually fresher because you just did your first NHL draft, right? Which was also your first, I think, NHL event, like from a media perspective.
Yep. 100%.
And also too, since you've been on the podcast, we had a family reunion with Scott Hannon, and so all kinds of cool stuff. And so I would like to hear your perspective. I'll just go with mine. I've had a number of those moments, I'll say. I mean, just like walking by Wayne Gretzky is still kind of like, oh, it's Wayne Gretzky. That's unbelievable. But one of my favorite stories to tell, though, is when I was covering the Vegas Golden Knights, their first expansion year, and the Golden Knights got off to a quick start. And I thought that, well, this was like very early in the season. This might have been like 15 games in the season. And at that time, the best expansion team in history was the 1993-94 Florida Panthers, like with 73 points or something like that. Nothing really amazing, but like, 500-ish or close, which is pretty great for an expansion team. Obviously, if you look at the Sharks or the Washington Capitals from 1974-75 that I've talked about, expansion teams were rotten. They were awful before. Anyway. So I thought it'd be a cool story to talk to somebody from that Panthers team, somebody that important on that team, just to kind of talk about the vibe of that team, how that team, what kind of players they targeted in the expansion draft, that sort of thing, right? And so at the top of that food chain was Bobby Clarke, who obviously Philadelphia Flyers great and also a longtime Flyers executive GM. But at the time, though, he was the Panthers GM. And so anyway, I just shot off an email to Zach Hill, who Flyers PR, who I think recently retired. And I had to give a shout out to him because I was a nobody writing for Hockey Buzz. My first NHL beat, the Golden Knights, 2017-18.
Is that the Eklund one?
Yes, it is the Eklund site. Yeah,
I see.
yeah. You didn't know that I wrote for them?
I didn't, actually. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually love to pick your brain about that at some time.
Well, yeah, I mean,
anyway, not now.
It's there were positives and negatives of that experience.
Oh, I know.
Let's leave it at that. So. But anyway, though, so I'm literally 15 games into covering the Golden Knights, and I have this story idea, and I'm always ambitious, so I'm gonna try to see if I can get Clarke. And so I wrote to Flyers PR. And I didn't think anything of it. I figured that they wouldn't even get back to me. Sure. And the next morning, I get a call. I'm woken up by a call, and I don't know the number. I pick up, and the person on the line's, "Hey, Sheng, this is Bobby Clark."
Hmm. Cool.
And growing up as a kid, um, I wasn't a kid when Bobby played, but as a kid though, I remember Bobby Clark as the GM of the Flyers, all the Eric Lindros drama, right?
Sure.
Drafting Eric Lindros too, and so also obviously a Hall of Famer, a legend, and so I just thought that was so cool of Zach Hill to just hook that up. I mean, he is like the Flyers legend too, and just sure, just call Sheng. This is a valid topic to talk. But you tell them what you want to talk about. It's not just like I'm Sheng Peng and I want to talk to Bobby Clark. It's you tell them. You always try to kind of present why, kind of like just why this guy should talk to you. Why should
Hmm.
Bobby Clark talk to you? And what did help is that Bobby had a close relationship with George McPhee, who was the GM, the
Sure.
architect of the expansion Golden Knights. So I think that Bobby was happy to sort of pump George's
Hmm.
tires up a bit. And so anyway, that's my story. What do you got?
I mean, that's awesome. I follow up your legend with one legend, which is
Mhm.
it was Patrick Marleau's, and I think that's the when we interviewed Marleau at the draft.
Oh yeah,
It
we
was
did it live
just
too. So you met him.
yeah, we did it. We did it live. I met him. It was just I don't know, because I grew up a Sharks fan. I basically just would watching Patrick Marleau's face every single night and
Sure.
giving post game interviews, seeing him score however many goals for the Sharks, and then just to see him in person, going like a normal dude and having the exact same expression that Patrick Marleau always has, which I don't know how to. It's kind of like
Bemused.
a always just a little bit like a little half smile, like a
Yeah.
little frown. It's like a smile frown at one time. Anyway, it was just the coolest thing to just like walking up and interviewing Patrick. I just like was like, oh okay, yeah, this is like the moment where I was like, oh shoot, I'm interviewing NHL players. This is a this is a real thing for me. So that was it. Like obviously seeing Scott again was awesome. And just getting more plugged into the hockey world has been fantastic over the past couple months. So happy to keep doing it, because it's like I don't know, it's the part that makes this all fun, including watching the Sharks be the worst team in the entire world.
Not bad for a side job. So
Yeah, exactly. Not bad for a side job. And we get to create great content for everybody. So, all right. Thank you, Alaskan Ice. You're always very nice and you comment on all our stuff, and it's very nice. Gary 2 is the next one. Gary
who also
2.
comments on a lot of stuff too. So thank you also for your positivity, Gary.
Yep. Hi, Sheng and Keegan. We seem to be seeing less high skill moves from Hertl these last couple of years. Some of the moves he used to pull off, like shake and spin off defenders, dekes he made like 4 years ago, were a joy to watch. Is this more of like a physical aging thing related to Hertl, or mental? He's more worried now not to like tweak the wrong way, or not playing the right way and costing the team. Do I collect hockey cards? So it's two questions. No, I don't collect hockey cards, but we'll sadly I have a few, but not a lot. I have a
He has
Scott
a
Hannon
Scott
card.
Hannon one, yeah.
I do, but no, I don't a lot. And yeah, let's talk about Hertl a little bit, because I kind of agree with this question. I feel like maybe he is kind of lost a step, and that's the tagline is Hertl slowing down.
Hmm. I mean, I guess if we're comparing to like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Hmm.
It's hard to say though because the team is so bad and there's so much on his shoulders
Sure.
that it's hard to say because in past years he's had Timo Meyer to help with space, Evander Kane to help with,
Hmm.
just somebody else, a threat of Hurdle's caliber or better, like Timo was on his line. And
Yeah.
before Evander, he was on 2018-19 Sharks, which obviously was loaded top to bottom. This year he has Anthony Duclair, who at least I thought Anthony actually was one of the
He had
few
a good
Sharks
game.
with a pulse
Yep. He had a good
against
game.
the Penguins. But in general, though, Duclair hasn't been very good this year.
Hmm.
Um, and then what? Zetterlin, who has 3 goals, but we know shouldn't be on a first line winger on an NHL team.
Yep.
Mike Hoffman yesterday, who is honestly looks like a shadow of the Mike Hoffman that we knew before, to be honest. Um, so Hurdle is basically it's kind of like, here's the puck. If you want to score, you got to be Jack Eichel. You got to be Connor McDavid. Now, Hertl isn't quite going to be able to do that. And so I guess what I'm saying is I'm going to pass. I'm going to reserve a little judgment on Hertl. Just give it a little time. There's been a couple plays he's made where he's shown some moves, and then he's made a lot of pretty good lead passes to guys this year too that have led to goals. And so I'm going to reserve judgment. It's a good question though. It's a very fair question. And I think we can tackle it a little later in the season or end of the season, but I'm going to be curious to see how he does. He's one of those guys I highly suspect, and I could be wrong because there are guys I say this about, like Mario Ferraro, who again is in a bad situation. I mean, a worse situation this year with the Sharks, and he's not playing better than it. I'm not going to make excuses for him that way. He's not playing better in the situation, but Hertl's the kind of guy that I think chances are if he's on a better team, he's going to look a lot better. Like, not one of those like of course anyone will look better on a better team, but he will look like markedly better, and then you'll understand why he is worth $8 million to somebody. Maybe not the Sharks that can't surround him with any help right now, but for a team that can pair him up with a good winger, then he'll look the part. And so that's what I suspect from what I've seen of him this year. But I could be wrong. But yeah, well, we can talk about it later.
I don't know. He does seem a little slower. I don't know if it's actually real or if it's more mental / the team is bad / it's hard for them to push play. But you're right. If you put Hertl on like Boston or Edmonton or like a true contending team,
I think so.
He would look fantastic.
I mean, I not to use a Hoffman as sort of the whipping boy, but if you put Hoffman on a better team, I don't know if you're going to get much better results. He just isn't the guy he used to be. Unfortunately, he can still shoot the hell out of the puck, but that is kind of seems to be about. He can move the puck. His passing's not. He can make a couple nice passes here and there too. But just overall, though, just he isn't who he used to be. So you put him somewhere else, I don't know if it's going to make a huge difference. But Hertl, I think so.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, next one comes from Embrace the Rebuild.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're fully on it. Thank you for doing the podcast, the mailbag. Really appreciate it. Sharks run course for 9 points this season. True, but hopefully they end up with a little bit more. If someone offered you a bet on the Sharks finishing the season with 34.5 points, would you take the over or the under?
They're actually on pace for less than 9 points now, because that question was written when they had 10 or 9 games in. So now they're on pace for like 7.5 points or something.
I personally am just so used to the Sharks having somewhere between 50 or between like 60, 70 points in these bad years that I cannot see them getting 34.5. I know they're worse, markedly worse. I think I'd go with the over if somebody offered me the bet. I think they're going to.
It's happened before, though. Let's. Of course, this was before the overtime loss, the loser point. But the 1992-93 Sharks, I think, had 24 points. That's the second lowest total. They were tied with Ottawa that year, actually, in the race for Alexander Daig. And then the worst team, of course, is the aforementioned Capitals that had 21 points. In 1974-75. So I agree with you that the Sharks will be better. Maybe I'm just in like another galaxy with this, but like I look at this team and I just don't think they should be this bad. I mean, bad, yes, I understand, but like this bad. And we'll see. I mean, there's gonna be a point where I keep watching this shit and I was just like, okay, fine, you guys,
they're horrible.
This team is unredeemable. So I'm still gonna take the over.
Yeah. Okay. So still the over. I'm gonna take the over, worth noting the Athletic that does point projection models and stuff. They're not 100% accurate, but I think they're at like 53, 55 points for the Sharks at the end of the year, somewhere between 53 and 58.
But this was before the season, though, right?
No, they update them daily, so like they update every.
Poor Sharks. Okay.
Yeah. So
what did it start at? Because if it's 50, must have been in the 60s, right?
Probably was in the 60s. Yeah. They were predicted to be the worst. And Chicago is predicted to be the second worst. So coming right for our lottery win is the Chicago.
But again, we talked about this, I think, the last podcast with the Sharks. Mike Grier obviously took on a lot of not big bets, but he took on a lot of bets with veteran guys that had down seasons, Duclair, Hoffman, Granlund, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
And you and I all offseason, we kind of talked up, well, if a couple of these guys hit, we assumed a couple of these guys would hit. We
Yeah.
never imagined a scenario where every single one of them, at least right now, would bomb.
It's kind of doesn't make any sense, but yeah, I honestly think it might just be that the team is fundamentally broken from the back end first. I think they just cannot find a way to move the puck.
And but it's also the forwards too, right? The forecheck is all. It's all, you know, it's all a circle. Everything's connected. It's not just one thing. We've seen like at least no name-ish defenses do okay, at least competent. And I feel like there's there's enough talent to be not like this, at least not 20-3 over the last 2 games. So
yeah. Speaking of dudes that they took swings on and then are going to try and hopefully trade them for future pieces. The second question for Embrace the Rebuild is, are there any players in the roster you still see as fetching a reasonable return given how terrible the Sharks have started? Shit. I don't know. Maybe we turn Jacob McDonald into like a 35-point defenseman and we get like...
well, yeah.
You never know.
Only one game out of him, one good game out of him, but the Magic 8 Ball says doubtful for me right now. But I'm gonna take a quick look at this though. Some of their UFAs. Right now, you're not trading Ruda or Granlund. I think someone asked that another question, but I mean, they have 2 years left, and they've not done much so far. So
yeah, to prove that they're worth trading.
So LeBanc has 0 points, constant healthy scratch. Hoffman has 1 assist, maybe. I'm not even sure.
Good Lord.
Duclair has 2 goals.
I think Duclair will fetch something. I think he's still got enough juice in the tank.
Maybe he's had a couple of good games at least. So,
but maybe. Did they give up like a 5th for him or something?
They gave up a 5th and Steven Lawrence.
Yeah. So are we even going to recoup our loss on Duclair? That's
no. I don't. I right now I would say no. Maybe you get that 5th back, but you don't get a solid grinder type like Lawrence back. Okay, let's get their other UFAs here. Ryan Carpenter. I mean, maybe someone needs some depth, but that's like a 7th round pick or something like that. Jacob McDonald, the Jacob McDonald experiment here. So yeah, sure, why not?
It's a great idea.
I guess Koppel has played pretty well when his team hasn't been letting him take headshots, I guess, right? And so so Koppel can keep up sort of. I know his high danger has been pretty strong save percentage to start the season. So I think as an insurance guy, obviously no one's going to take him, at least right now. I mean, he's not even the Sharks' number 1 guy. So no one's going to take him as the number 1 guy, but can he be a good insurance guy? And maybe a team trades you a 4th rounder, maybe. I
didn't even realize how horrible the last 2 games ruined the
for sure.
Both.
It ruined the goal save expected.
Yeah, they're both at 0.87. Well, Capo's 0.876 and Blackwood's 0.879. So in the season now because of the last 2 games. Amazing. Anyway,
welcome.
Welcome to the
history will be made. Tank. So yeah, so good job, Sharks. I'm just curious though. Yeah, they also have sunk below. They were at the 9-game mark, both positive goals saved above expected, but now they're below, which makes sense. Yeah, because at a certain point, you keep giving up goals. You're gonna drop
Banoff.
No,
Banoff has to come back from injury. Maybe
he has to be good.
Something.
But
he has to be good.
I honestly, and I've said this before. I mean, I had questions about his game when he was producing. I know some people. I know you like him more, but I don't see a team giving up a 2nd round pick or whatever for him. And obviously not right now when he has not done anything this year. But
I think
maybe he comes back and he's productive. Yeah,
that are actually valuable to competing teams, and maybe Duclair in like a 3rd line role would be valuable. Maybe
for
a team that's lacking wingers. But he's also like
he's a little expensive.
Yeah, and that's the one position that is like you get the least return from is one-dimensional winger. That's
Yeah.
like the one thing that you don't get that much money from. So
That's
or
what
that
that's what I say
much.
about Barabanov and
Same thing.
LeBanc, and they can
Yeah.
produce 50 points, but they're not
I
that
suspect they'll
valuable.
get some draft picks at the deadline, but I don't think it's going to
For
be
who?
anything major. I don't
Honestly,
know.
for who though?
Somebody.
I'm looking at this. I'm looking at how they play this year. At this rate, they will get nothing. Maybe Kakinen, I guess, at this rate. And
Hmm.
we assume that people will improve. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean
One good game from Duclair erased all my doubts.
I mean the guys that maybe you can get something for, like they're young enough that you may not want to trade, guys like Zetterlin and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, no,
Or
we're not. I don't think we should.
Sturm is just throws his hands of this and just like, get me out of here. Like you
Yeah,
can get something for
maybe.
Sturm, but
Hmm.
yeah,
He also has 0 points in the year, and
yeah, true. Or a guy like Benning who's on the IR now, but if he's healthy and he starts to kind of, I again, a lot of these guys, like I don't care what's happened this year. I very strongly believe that Matt Benning is a very good bottom pairing defenseman. He shouldn't
he's
be
the
in the
best
top
defenseman
four.
on the
He
Sharks.
shouldn't. Yeah. Yeah, and so that exposes him. But on a winning
Hmm.
team, on a playoff team, you'll be very happy with him on your bottom pairing.
Oh,
Nico Sturm, I don't care if he has 0 points on a winning team. You'll be thrilled to have him as your 4C.
yeah,
And sometimes you just got to get guys out of these awful situations that are making them look bad. So I think
yeah.
that's the case with those guys. But anyway, answer the question. No, nothing. The Sharks have nothing of value right now. So moving on.
But give it like 20 games, maybe we'll get
Maybe.
somebody up. And also Jacob McDonald hype train. This is it. All right. Lizbeth DeSelm says, couple questions.
Mhm.
So we'll go with the first one. How bad is Couture's injury? The way DQ talked about saving players from themselves, sounds like it'd be a very challenging year for them getting on the ice. You're talking about Benning. Maybe we can keep them
We'll keep
off
it with
most of the
Couture.
year.
We'll keep it with
Yeah,
Couture. But
sure.
with Couture, I think the problem is his injury is one of I don't actually, I still haven't identified exactly what it is, but we all highly suspect it's a groin, kind of like what Carlson had. Maybe not exactly the same thing, but it's the kind of thing that it is very unpredictable. Uh, if we remember with Eric Carlson, he came back and then he left after a couple games. He left again. He didn't come back until near the playoffs, right? With his groin injury. So I'm not
Hmm.
if that is what Couture has, then that's the kind of thing that's a lot of starts and stops, a lot of feeling better, but then you're not feeling better. And so it's hard to say, and which is why I will trumpet the one of the few bold predictions that unfortunately may end up to be true. Is I said that Couture might not play till December, and
Yeah.
it's looking like if he makes it to that's actually going to be good news for the Sharks at this rate. So yeah, so how bad is it? It's hard to say. I don't think that they're going to hold him off for the season or anything like that, but I do believe that he wants to play, and I can't believe even I know people want to avoid this tire fire, but I can't believe him as a captain can be taking this well. That
Hmm.
they're losing the way they are. That it's just a bad. It's just a hit on everybody's reputation and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm sure he wants to come back, but anyway, so
Yeah. Yeah. That is a good prediction. But yeah, I don't know. I do think the Sharks do miss him.
yeah, no,
And you're right.
undoubtedly, yeah,
I think he can't be looking at this team and just being like, he's hurt. He's hurt. He's not like
yeah.
just not coming back because you can't, as the captain of this team, you can't just be sitting around and being like, oh, if I could only play, and he secretly is able to play. No, like
No, no,
if he's able, he's
no,
gonna come out, but
no.
he can't. So I think you're right. I think it's a little bit worse than they let on, or it's just one of them nagging injuries that's just hard to nail down. It's non-surgical, but it's
Yeah.
you need different types of rest. So anyway, okay, Elizabeth, thank you for your question. Your second question is it too early to look at the 2024 draft class, and is Celebrini that good?
Yeah, it's definitely not
Uh,
too early, but I'll give you the Celebrini question to answer.
yeah, we were giggling a bit at the is it too early to look at the 2024 draft
Yeah,
class
it is
because
not too early.
it's not too early, and also every single fan I think is looking at it like
But no, but
we're
again,
all looking.
yeah, we're all looking.
Um,
Yeah,
Sharks fans at least,
yeah.
because man, is Celebrini that good? I would say this is going to be controversial. Probably not.
Mm.
Probably not what you're thinking Celebrini is in terms of, he's Bedard, he's Crosby, he's McDavid, he's those things that like.
Is he
man,
even Jack Hughes?
No, I don't think so. I think he's more like Jack Eichel, more that kind of caliber of. And it's not like he's still going to be, I think, a number one center in the NHL, and that's like the most valuable thing that your team can have. But it's not like, is he worth giving up 10 goals every night and like watching your team be this horrible to only have a quarter of a chance to get him?
Should have done this last year. So
yeah, should have done it last year. Is 25% chance to even get him, and he's not like he's very good, and he's like got a goal per game in the NCAA, which is amazing for a freshman. He's only 17. He turns 18 in June, so he's very young. He's killing the NCAA. He killed last year in juniors, but it's not like he doesn't have that same like dynamic skill, and he has a lot of skill, but it's not like the same generational talent level that you saw last year. And every time that there is that kind of thing, like the next year they're like, oh, this guy's just like Bedard, and it's like, no, or this guy's just like McDavid, or this guy's just like Crosby, or whatever. Very, very rare for that to actually be the case. Only
do you
when
think
it
that
happened
Celebrini would be in the conversation for number 2 pick of last year's draft?
I think so. I think that's
the
very
conversation,
reasonable.
like in the Fantilli,
I think
Carlson, Will
that's
Smith
reasonable.
tier. Okay, just curious. Okay.
I think he's above Will Smith. Very clearly. He's probably near the level of the Fantilli, but Fantilli also, dominated college last year. Had a little bit more of that like competitive, in your face aggressiveness that Celebrini might not have all of. Celebrini is aggressive with like the way that he plays, and he does aggressively shoot the puck, and he's trying to get into shooting positions a lot, but it's not like, I don't know, or Fantilli, sometimes it was like gonna put the team on my back kind of thing that I think that Celebrini is still developing. But obviously I have many good things to say about Celebrini. I think he is definitely worth the number 1 overall pick this year for sure, but it's not like 2024 is the amazing draft class that 2023 was, I think. So is he this good? He's good, but I don't think overall this draft class is worth selling or having your team be bad.
Is he worth a goal differential of minus? Doing the math,
42.
The Sharks are on pace for a minus 321 goal differential, I think, if my math is correct here.
Yeah, and obviously,
is he worth that? Probably not. No one is.
You
worth
want
it.
to, but you don't get extra. Like we talked about this before. You don't get extra points for being worse than the last overall. Like you don't get worse. Like you don't get extra points for being.
That'll be awesome. The more goals you give up, the more lottery balls.
It'd be amazing. We should pitch that to Gary Bettman, but then teams would just tank even worse. But so there's still only a 25% chance, even if we get last place, that we're going to get Celebrini. So I don't know. Is it worth it to be like begging or hoping for Celebrini? I don't think so. Also, I was so disappointed last year in not getting Bedard that I don't want to repeat that as well.
See, the Blackhawks get the number 1 pick again. So
yeah, no, not just that. There was
Blackhawks, noted team with 0 scandals attached around the team.
There was one play where Jonathan Toews had a breakaway to end the game to give them the 1 point they needed to get over the Sharks, and he missed it.
You can't say that. Game. Can't say that Toews didn't lead him to the end. So
Toews led him to getting Bedard, or else the Sharks would. I mean, lottery balls, what they are, they would have bounced differently. Butterfly wings, etc. Like if a butterfly flaps its wings in like Niagara Falls, it affects the stock market in New York. Kind of thing.
Jonathan Toews misses a breakaway.
Anyway, point is Celebrini that good? He's very good, but don't like hold out all your hopes because there's only a 25% chance anyway.
Don't worship false idols, okay?
Don't worship. Yes, worship Bedard instead. All right, Chris Boucher-Lam. This one's kind of a longer question.
We can just stick with the Vlasic part.
Yeah. It's basically, has Vlasic's time come to an end in San Jose?
And should the Sharks buy him out this summer?
And
I also want to say hi to Chris. Thank you for coming to the draft lottery party with your fiance. I'm sorry that things ended as they did in the draft lottery for the Sharks. But anyway, no, thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to meet you guys. So okay, so with Vlasic, in terms of just his general play, he very well could be at the end of it, or he can have a little bounce back like he did last year. It's hard to say. So in the season, the team is so awful that I don't want to just say it's just one guy being done. It could just be everyone looking bad because the team is bad right now, but they can play themselves into some respectability. But in terms of buying Vlasic out, though, so the Sharks seem to have they want to open up space, right? For the post Carlson era and whatnot, right? And the contracts they took on for Carlson, and also the fact they retained so little. The contracts they took on were all 1 or 2 year contracts, right? And so why buy out Vlasic? I don't know. Unless he's so like toxic in the locker room, which I don't really see.
Sure.
And so I'm not sure. I don't really see the point in buying him out, because if you buy him out this summer, what are you buying him out for? What do you need that cap space for?
Hmm.
The team, you're not planning to be any good. So I think you only buy him out at a point when you think the team can take the next step, or you're close to that, or you want to do that, right? Because I know that after the 2021-22 season, I was strongly in favor of buying out Vlasic, because not that I agree with the Sharks' plan, but I thought that they were, after they re-signed Tomas Hertl, that they were trying to win still. They're trying to make an effort to win. And so what do you need to win? Well, you need cap space. And the only logical place to get cap space was to take an awful buyout, but nonetheless, though, would have cleared media cap space to surround Tomas Hertl with a team. But Mike Grier came in, seems to be a different marching orders. He's doing something different, and in that scenario, yeah, I don't see the purpose in buying off Vlasic. Well, again, what do you need a cap space for?
I agree. I don't think there's a reason to buy him out. You can bury him if you
Hmm.
feel like he's so bad on the ice that you want him, in the AHL instead of NHL. You can waive him,
Yeah.
and bury him, and you still save like $1 million there. So you can just replace him with $1 million defenseman, which is basically what he is right
And
now.
I'll add to that, because
Uh,
I think I've read that people are saying, oh, well, cap space is valuable. You can still take on bad contracts and whatever and get draft picks. And yeah,
sure.
that's true. But the Sharks should have a lot of cap space in general. They don't need to buy out Vlasic
Yep.
and stretch out the penalty, because they're going to have cap space regardless. It looks like so.
Yeah, and I think people just want a new face and not have to look at Vlasic being terrible every night. But it's not the reason to buy him out. You just kind of hold it out and waive him if you need to. And then maybe, who knows, there's like a gentleman's agreement where he has like a wink wink equipment allergy that he can't play for the last 2 years of his contract. Honestly, that happens on constantly in the NHL when a player is so gets a little bit older and they can't play anymore, but they still have like 3-4 years left on their deal. Team will pay them basically to sit on the bench, but put him on LTIR. So
Yeah,
honestly, it's credit to Vlasic for staying as in shape as he is. He just doesn't get injured very frequently.
yeah, he doesn't. Yeah,
So but it might be one of those things where eventually that's the route that they take
trade him to
if
the Tampa
necessary.
Bay Lightning next year. So.
Yeah, or the graveyard of the Arizona Coyotes when they were
Yeah.
still stacking up LTIR bodies, but that could be a possibility too. So I think buying him out seems a little short-sighted for no real gain.
Yeah, no real gain. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That's the point. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go a little quicker. Bring back Celebrini, which I appreciate the name. Celebrini is worth it. No, I'm kidding.
Famously,
Sheng,
Junior Shark.
famous junior shark.
Yes.
Sheng and Keegan. This one's long. Thank you for everything you two do. Hopefully, it's a fun exercise. Seeing that GM Mike Grier has 8 expiring deals at forward, 4 at D, 1 at goaltender. Who do you resign? Anyone traded net back picks and outside
Just
that fills out your
who's worth
roster.
resigning? Yeah, so that's all. That's something
Basically,
to worry about. Yeah.
yeah, who's worth re-signing out of
And
our
then
8
and then
expiring
and
deals?
then another question that bringing back Celebrini had is essentially looking at the UFA class for
Hmm.
next year, and would it be sensible for the Sharks to sign anybody, given that in bringing back Celebrini's opinion that the rebuild will take 5 years. So
Sure.
anyway, to take on the first one, who is worth re-signing?
Jacob McDonald.
Um, Yeah,
I'm joking.
we'll see. Hmm.
Hmm.
Maybe nobody, but
Honestly,
hopefully Zadina's not has had a rough time the last few games, but once again the team hasn't been very good, and he I think is kind of riding the downward wave of that too. He is a
Ty
player that
Emberson.
maybe yeah,
Mhm.
but Zini is a guy that's a young guy that really takes things hard, I think, and I think he's a guy that is doing too much, but he's young though, and that's what very young players tend to do. So I'm not killing him for it, but hopefully though, again, this is going to be a learning season for a lot of these guys. So if they can get Zadina up to shape that he's signable, that he is maybe more consistent mentally, that he's not in his own way, kind of. His talent is clear. I like his talent. We've all seen it. I know people are harping on David Quinn to promote him up in the lines, but the problem is the other stuff is short. It's not just pure talent, pure effort, which he does give, or pure skill. It's also defensive acuity. It's also just not taking up too much on yourself offensively, not doing things that you really shouldn't be doing just because you're trying to make a difference. Um, and so hopefully he's a guy though that's right there. I don't hate Luke Kunin like a lot of people seem to, and so I know a lot of people like him around the league. So if the Sharks were to let him go, I don't know if you're getting that third round pick back, and his contract is weightier than it should be, but he would I think go to a winning team pretty quickly and show
Mhm.
some value on that winning team. Anthony Duclair maybe just because one thing I have liked about Duclair is his sort of he seems to be a good locker room presence, but just he seems to be positive. He's trying to bring energy, and I think that's just his personality. And so he might be a guy who might be a good fit for a rebuild if he wants to be a part of it, which I'm not sure if he wants to be.
Mhm.
But if he wanted to be, then he might be a good call to bring back. Um, Emerson, a Hotiak younger, so we'll see. I think Capo, we're gonna see how his season ends up. Barabanov, I've had this. I think we've talked about this on the podcast. I'm just not sure what Alex brings besides some offensive production. And yes, you do need players for your
Sure.
William Eklunds to play with and whatever. So maybe for that reason, bring him back. But I still find his value to be mostly on the offensive side, and that's pretty much it. And so I'm kind of on the mind of, if you can get something for him at a trade deadline, or I don't know, just not he's not a must sign in my mind. So
Mhm. I think honestly the only one I would take is Emberson, and not
okay.
this because like Emberson is amazing. Actually, I think his benching was pretty warranted
Oh, it
because he
was,
got
yeah.
benched.
He was not
Yeah,
very good in that game.
he did
Yeah,
not have a good game. I think his
I
other
mean, a
games
lot of
he's
people were
played in.
bad, but
Yeah, Emberson had a very bad game though.
he
He
did
had lots of
particularly had a bad game.
misreads, but I think other than that, he's been very solid. Um,
I
so
don't.
and he's so young, but
For this
very
defensive core, maybe solid. I wouldn't use too many qualifiers of very
solid
solid, but
for the Sharks and for a waiver
yes.
claim.
Okay.
How's
That's
that?
fine. Yes, that's fine. That's
Oh
fine.
man.
But I wouldn't write off a Hotiak.
Yeah.
He has looked rough the first couple of games.
Yep.
His two games with the Sharks have given up 20 goals.
Yeah, he did not look. He looked out of his element, but also the Sharks looked like they should be an AHL team anyway.
Yeah,
So
so I wouldn't just
hard to know.
give up on sort of the
Hmm.
talent. Again, in a better situation, he
Yeah,
probably will look better. So
yeah. So we'll see. And then second question from Back Celebrini, which we touched on: what UFAs would want to sign here and fit with our rebuilding timeline
yeah.
of possibly 5 years?
Yeah, see, that's one thing that I would push back on. I don't think the Sharks are designating a 5-year rebuild. I don't think so. I could be wrong, but again, with the
Hmm.
cap space that they seem to have cleared for 2025-26 after Granlund Ruda's contracts expire,
Hmm.
they looks like they're gonna have a bit of space there, and so I think that they're hoping. I think they're hoping that they have enough young talent pushing up that they can pair that with some better veteran talent in 25-26. But that just is what makes sense with what they're doing with the why would they not want to retain more on Carlson? Okay, because maybe they want to compete sooner than 40 years from now, right? If they had retained like half of Carlson's contract, right? Like some of us suggested, um, why not retain for 4 more years? But the reason why you don't
Mhm.
want to do that is because you want to compete sooner. You don't want to have that 4 million dead space cap hold, which makes sense if you're trying to compete sooner.
Sure.
And so I think my guess is the hope is that 25, 26, they'll know what they have in William Eklund. They'll know what they have in Will Smith, even though Smith will be younger, but they'll know if the hype is warranted, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
Shakir Mukumadulin, Henry Thrun, Thomas Bordalo, Philip Bystead, all, down the line, all those guys, they'll have a better sense of what they've got there. And if that's a legit young core, that you can start to sign somebody who, some 27-year-old or whatever, right? That's part of that free agency class, to crest together. Basically, the hope that the prime of a younger UFA meets sort of the William Eklund entering his prime, Shakir Mukumadulin entering his prime, to form a playoff caliber team finally.
Mhm.
So anyway, I don't think the plan is 5 years, but looking over this free agency class list, just a quick look, the kind of guys I think it's going to be along the same lines of what the Sharks did this offseason. Just guys with shorter term contracts, guys that they can flip. They just are going to hope for a lot more success than so far this year. But last year they did have a little bit of success. I think they picked up Mikey Asimont on waivers, and they were able to flip him for a fourth round pick. Um, I think guys, even though they're still in the Sharks, guys like Nico Sturm and Matt Benning raised their values relatively when they're with the Sharks, and so maybe guys like that. So looking
Mhm.
over this list, it's not going to be the most exciting names. It's not going to be your William Nylanders or Steven Stamkos or whatever, right? And I guess what I'm
Sure.
saying is that guys like that, maybe in a couple of years, that
Mhm.
what I'm seeing long term, maybe that's what they're trying to do. But in terms of this list I'm looking at, I mean, we're talking about guys like Ekman Larson, who's going to be a UFA. No one exciting. Noel Hannafin, who's 27. I mean, he's probably going to be too expensive for the Sharks, but he's probably a kind
Sure.
of guy. I think he's a BC guy too. So he's the kind of guy that
Mhm.
maybe they would like to help anchor the defense and take some pressure off of Ferraro and Benning. Oh, actually, yuck, he's a BC guy, so maybe not. So,
Mhm.
but anyway, I'm just joking about that. So maybe Hannafin in terms of just he is a little bit younger and maybe provide some leadership, that sort of thing. So
Sure.
guys along those lines, they're not gonna go for any of the really exciting names, though. I'm sure.
Yeah. I think Jake DeBrusk is out there. I think if they're going to lose a ton of wingers, like they're
Hmm.
going to lose Hoffman and Duclair and Barabanov, and who knows how many of these people they take. But
Right.
Jake DeBrusk feels like a Grier kind of guy.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it
he's
could be
going
a
to be a
good gamble.
UFA.
Won't be too expensive, maybe. Right. All that
Yeah,
stuff, all that good stuff. Right. So yeah, sure.
from Boston, not originally, but he plays in Boston. So there you go. Anyway, yeah, it's it's going to be hard. Also, a lot of these dudes are going to sign contracts before then. So
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
predict this
But
far into the season is a little tough.
I don't see them I could be wrong, but I don't see them at the point I just think of an
Swinging.
example like the Red Wings, right, signing David Perron to a couple of years because they were
Hmm.
trying to same thing. They were trying to get their young talent to crest with some veteran talent to make something kind of competitive, right?
Yep.
And I don't think the Sharks are quite at that point this off season. Again, I think they might be in 25, 26 or before that season.
Hmm.
After the 2024-25 season, but I would predict this offseason that it's going to be more sort of bargain bin hunting,
Sure.
dumpster diving.
Rebuild,
To be
kind of
honest,
like
yeah, rebuild moves. I just
reclamation projects.
hope
Yeah.
you pick better guys than you seem to have so far this
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. We have to get so good that we somehow do not have the worst goal differential in NHL history. So, um, so there's a long way to go.
There's a long way to
All
go.
right.
Yeah.
What's the Sharks scouting presence in Russia? Asks Just Steve.
Yeah.
That's kind of the gist of the whole question.
Hmm.
Um, because there's some potentially really good Russian players in the 2024 draft, including Silyaev and Demidov. I think we touched on this.
Yeah, we did a couple. When they hired about a month ago, 2 months ago, they hired Igor Aranko as to be their Russian scout. They had another Russian scout, Nikolai Latikin, who they still have, but Nikolai lives in Ukraine, from what I understand. So that makes it obviously harder for him to scout in Russia. But I'll go off. It's from a podcast a couple weeks ago that I mentioned, or a month ago. So I will find the message that I got from a contact there about Igor, but basically that he is well respected. People like him. People think that he is smart and hardworking, and so hopefully that leads to some success drafting Demidov or whatnot. So yeah, so they do have a scout there. I think that was the basic question: do they have a scout there? Yes, they do, and they have a scout in Russia, and that he is a well respected guy.
Yep, and I agree. There are some good Russians. There were good Russians. One good Russian last year that Sharks did not go for. It was my guy, but neither here nor there. All right, next question comes. Well, actually, a few questions. We're gonna pick out two of them, I think, because Alex had a couple. So Alex, I'm gonna say this wrong. Genadinik. What's the deal with the Penguins pick? Is kind of
Well, just basically, yeah, like that first round pick. That
Yeah, so basically there's like a top 10 protected clause on it. We were looking into this just before the show to try and figure out exactly what that meant, because it seems to be that it's top 10 protected, meaning that if the Penguins end up after the lottery with the 7th overall pick or the first overall pick, they can elect to give the Sharks the 2025 unprotected first round pick. That's kind of what we landed on.
Well, I think just essentially that it is top 10 protected, and if the Penguins are really bad and they end up there, the Penguins get to keep their pick if it's in the top 10. But the next year it's unprotected, so that's good news on that pick. And then Alex had a general question about Mike Grier.
Yeah, and this is going to be the first in a couple of these questions.
A lot of job security questions for some reason.
It comes down to, because of these historical ridiculous losses, what would it take to get Mike Grier fired?
Mm-hmm.
What does the job security look like for Mike
Oh
Grier?
boy. I think he is secure now. I don't think he's tied into some bad losses here.
Mhm.
What would it take? Boy. I think there's acknowledgement that the Sharks are in a rebuild from the highest,
Mhm.
up high, but I do wonder though that if it's so bad, the on ice product, that I, how do I say this? I think the blueprint of what Mike is doing is sensible. I'm still going to, I'm not going to waver on that. The blueprint of try to bring in veteran guys, high compete guys, have a good environment for young players to come up in, try to lose games 4-3, 3-2, not 10-3. um, all that makes sense, but what I am questioning is the guys he's bringing in, that
Mm.
so far they've all sort of flopped. And so is there a disconnect in terms of the evaluation up at the pro level? That's possible. And so to answer the question, I think Mike will get the year for sure to get this out. And I think that the idea is to give him a lot of space. Like, again, no one is expecting the Sharks to win a lot of games. No one is expecting the Sharks to make the playoffs.
Mhm.
But I don't think anybody though would have guessed they'd be so bad.
Mm.
And and we're talking historically bad at this rate. And so if they end up historically bad, that means that Mike made a lot of wrong choices with the guys he brought in. Probably, right? Could be injuries
Yeah.
too and a lot of other things, but probably that's what it is. If the Sharks end up with a 35-point season or something like that, or 42-point season, um, he messed up. He botched a lot of his signings and acquisitions. that won't reflect well on him. And so can you bring in somebody that can still institute the plan that Mike had, which is a valid plan, but make
Yep.
some better decisions with veteran signings and trades? You probably can. So if you think of it that way, then it is possible that a historic. So I guess I'll say that a historically bad season might put his job in question. But otherwise, I think he's pretty safe because I think his plan is valid. I think that Hasso seems to have bought into the plan, which is really important. But I don't sure Hasso can't be delighted watching a minus 43 goal differential team after 11 games. No one can. No one. It's an unwatchable product for a lot of
Yep.
these games right now. And no, so yeah, why? So why would he be happy about that? So I think that. So I think if I were to say like. I don't know this for a fact, but it would seem that Mike's mandate is generally around have a competitive, watchable team,
Mm-hmm.
but accrue draft picks, high draft picks. And
Yeah.
last year's team certainly fit that bill. It was 4 points away from being the worst team in the league. It was one Jonathan Toews breakaway, Kevin LeBanc hot streak
Yeah.
away
No
from
Gregor or
no Gregor, right? Away from being having the best odds, best
Tomas
lottery
Hertl like
odds.
tying the game. I don't remember what game this was with like 9
Carlson
seconds
tied.
left.
Carlson tied a game too. Actually, Carlson tied a game late in the season. I think it was against the Blackhawks. He tied a game late in the season. Anyway, though, like so things. But it was a competitive until maybe after the trade deadline when they traded a lot of people, which is I think people understand. That's at that point you're just watching 20 games of awful hockey and not 82 games of awful hockey.
Yeah.
Anyway, that team fit the bill.
Mm-hmm.
It was competitive. You can make an argument that the record should have been better. I think that David Quinn did a good job with last year's team
Sure.
overall with what he was given. And so that team fit the bill, I think, of what Mike's mandate generally is: build a competitive team. If everything hits right, then maybe it makes the playoffs, but probably not. But if things are as they are, as long as they're competitive and interesting, and get those draft picks, get those high picks, trade guys at the deadline for more picks. Great plan, very valid plan.
Yeah.
So can this team, this current team, this year? Yeah, I think that's going to be a question. Can it get back to respectability? If they can do that, then I think Mike will be fine. But if they continue on this rate, then yeah, maybe there's going to be an issue there. And again, I don't think Hasso seems to have a lot of patience, so it would not be something that's done lightly. He's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be, Hasso's. I don't think he's going to be the kind of guy that's going to fire Mike mid-season like some owners might. So I guess I'll say that.
Yeah, you have a lot more, just I guess feelers basically about the way these things kind of work, just because of what you do.
Yeah,
I like you were saying, I like Grier's plan. I think
plan's
I've
reasonable.
I've
Yeah,
I've liked his moves. I like his reasoning behind why he's picking certain players. I like the I don't like the construction of his current team, but I don't think I don't know. In some ways, it was meant to be. It was put up to fail essentially. It was supposed to be a little bit more competitive than this,
a lot
and I
more. I
think
think. So
I
again,
also
that's the problem. Yeah.
yeah, and I think um, if there's an axe that's gonna fall, I don't think it's on Mike Grier first, but we'll talk about that in the next couple
Mhm.
questions.
Sure.
Anyway,
Yes. A lot of job
all right,
security questions.
so many.
Even just
Fine.
to tease, even my job security. So,
Even
but
Shanks,
yes.
not maybe even mine. No, probably not mine, but
Well,
maybe.
no, your job security in this, at least in this podcast,
We're
is
still doing the
I think
podcast
it's high.
regardless if you have a job, Shank. It's good.
No, okay. Who would be covering the? Yeah.
I don't know. We'll pick an AHL team or something. The Charlotte
Bay
Checkers.
Area Panther,
The
the local arena football or whatever
Yeah,
team.
let's pick arena
Yeah.
football
Yeah.
or roller derby, roller hockey, either one. Anyway, Matthias 893 says, "Thanks for doing the podcast. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Are there
Yes.
any
Thank you.
offensive defensemen in the league that the Sharks should be realistically affordably pursuing at this point? Adam
Or
Boquist
available or affordable.
or
That's
available?
it. Yeah. So.
Um, Adam Boquist seems to be on the outs in Columbus due to their own defensive logjam, but he's young, right shot offensive D who had 24 points, 46 games last year. But on the other hand, he was also not good enough to push onto the Jackets roster this year. I would like to say that every one of the top 4 defensemen on the Jackets roster is better than every single Sharks defender right now. So, yeah, he can't crack that roster, but it's not like they have an amazing all-star defense either. They just have 4 dudes that are, good. So anyway, Adam Boqvist, and we did some digging on this one to try and find names. And as you might expect, it's hard to get young puck-moving defenders without paying for it. Notably, last season, Vancouver paid for Philip Hronek from Detroit to try and pair with Quinn Hughes. It's worked out wonders for them.
Had to give up a first-round pick, though.
Had to give up a first-round pick. Same with Dallas. They paid for Niels Lundqvist, who's like 21, 22. Had to give up a first-round pick. Now, they've had wildly different outcomes so far, but the point is that getting these dudes that are young enough to fit with the rebuild for the Sharks and available often costs first-round pick plus. So are the Sharks willing to do that at this time? And is there anyone out there? Not really, from what we could tell. We looked around the league trying to find a dude. Boqvist and
Boqvist is a pretty good, and you mentioned Jake Bean in terms of affordable because they probably wouldn't cost the first, I guess. But
yeah, they probably wouldn't. But they're also probably not as good as somebody like Philip Hronek. They're definitely not as good as somebody like Philip Hronek.
Sure.
So I don't know. I do think maybe the Sharks will try and find somebody. Maybe this is like an AHL kind of thing. Maybe their own Leon Gavanka, like you mentioned.
Sure.
And
maybe they just give him a shot and just see, hey, this is your chance to stick in NHL. If you can't do anything in these 10 games, then welcome to playing in Germany for the rest of your life, maybe.
Yeah. So I mean, they got to try something, right? Because right now, Jacob McDonald hype train is only going to go so far as I say it's going to go. So, I don't know. What else are your thoughts, Sheng, on this one?
It's pretty much along those lines. I don't think that off the top of my head and with our research, also too, it's kind of early in the season, so there's not a lot of guys available. I mean, Tony DeAngelo is available, but I think for a lot of reasons, you probably want to stay away from him.
Sure.
So anyway, though, I'm not really quite sure. I think Boqvist is a good guess for somebody, and I think just giving Gavanka a shot is a good idea too.
Yep. And we do have some, Thrawn, Mukhamadullin that are still cooking down the AHL.
Especially Mukhamadullin again. Yeah, don't fall into that temptation. Like, look at this. Yeah. Can you imagine Mukhamadullin turning his head dash 45 into the season, just turning his head all the time, all the goals getting passed? That's not good.
Yeah, getting turnstiled every single night and getting beat wide and then go under if he's ever going to make the NHL.
I think Henry can be fine up here, but sure. Definitely do not expose Mukhamadullin to this. Again, we're already exposing Eklund to this, but it's a forward, a defenseman. It's just a whole different position, whole different pressure. So yeah, I wouldn't touch that. So,
and we'll talk about Eklund's play in a little while as
sure.
well.
Yep.
All right, Anthony Morris is our next question. Jonathan Becher. The Shark. Becher. God, I cannot pronounce Jonathan Becher. Every time I try, it's like Becher.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but the question is basically about Becker's job security. Does he have to worry about his job security? I could just take
we're
this
going
quickly.
Down the line, but yes, go ahead.
We're gonna basically talk about everybody in the organization and their job security, including my own. I'm not an organization though, but anyway, though, Becher, I don't think he has anything really to worry about. I mean, he's the president. He's more about business and things like that, right? And so he's not the guy responsible for the on the ice product. So I think he's going to be safe. As far as I understand it too, he's close with Hasso, and I don't see any reason why he should be in danger. I mean, the food tastes better. SAP Center, they brought in
really well.
They brought in August pastrami. That's the stuff that I think depends more on Becher. Okay, it's not Jacob McDonald, your PP1 quarterback. That's not on Becher. So so I think he's gonna be fine. I think that's sort of a nothing to be
fair
about.
To be fair to Anthony, he did mention things like not just the on ice product being terrible, but like low crowds,
but that's the on ice product though, right?
Yeah, you'd think, but I mean, obviously, like some of that does come from his job as well.
There's last night the Sharks were able to sell it because of partnership with the Warriors. They gave away a Warriors/Sharks jersey. They're not gonna be able to
Yeah.
partner with the Warriors for 41 games this season. So,
Damn it.
unless Becher blew that opportunity when the Warriors like, hey, let's team up for 41 games. He's like, no, we don't need you. Okay, in that case, then fire his ass. But I don't think that's what was out there. That was a one
Mhm.
day, one game a season kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, crowds are low, but it's because the team sucks, and that doesn't really have anything to do with Becher. I mean,
Mhm.
I guess the only way you can tie things into Becher is that I do believe that he had an influence in the hiring of Mike Grier, and so if Mike Grier ends up, well, this guy is not a very good GM, which I think the jury's still out. I like Mike, I like his
Sure.
plan, but I'm not going to tell you, looking at you right now, that Mike Grier is a good GM or a great GM. I have no idea. We have no idea right
Yeah,
now.
sure.
So the jury is out there, and so if Mike takes the fall, then maybe Becher takes some of that because of his involvement with hiring him. But beyond that, though, in terms of I mean, yeah, like again, I don't think Becher has that kind of sort of the finances matter to him, right? So there was a story actually just out, written by my colleague Curtis, Mercury News, that Becker talks about being presented with Eric Carlson, sort of like just what teams wanted to trade for Eric, but also the money aspect of it. So I think the financial aspect does have something to do with Becker, for sure, as sort of the conduit to Hasso. But again, beyond that, yeah, I'm not really seeing why his job would be
Mhm.
under fire. So unlike the next group of guys, I guess you're going to mention. So
Indeed. I will say the food at SAP Center is very good.
yeah, it's pretty good. I, I
It's pretty good.
I can't complain. Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
walked around and I was like, oh, these are like a lot of like kind of, because in the old days, if you remember 20 years ago, it's kind of a side, but 20. I mean, of course, I'm comparing to a long time ago, but like
mm,
20 years ago, 30 years ago, you're lucky to have like a hot dog on a stick, or literally a hot
yeah,
dog on a stick. Not even the brand name, the company hot dog on a stick, but
just
just
a hot
literally
dog
a
on a
hot
stick.
dog on a stick
Yeah.
at a game. But now you walk around, you see all these local San Jose places like Smoking Pig and iguanas and places like that, right? Popular local places that are you basically, if you go to SAP Center, you get a pretty good taste of San food in San Jose, which is great, which is
Yeah.
what you should get, I think, when you go to Arena.
All right. Next question is Zeke, and this is the big one. I think this one's going to be a longer discussion. Um, Basically, it boils down to the Sharks at long last decided they need to rebuild, which means they need the right staff for that process. Optimal leaders for rebuilding team differ from optimal leaders for a highly competitive team. Do they have the right coaches and execs? I'll narrow it down to Quinn and McCarthy, but feel free to add other ones. We've already added other ones, other execs. So we'll talk about Quinn and McCarthy and their job security um, after a historic back-to-back loss.
Yeah. So I don't think that I never thought that the Quinn's job was in danger, no matter the record. I thought, but I didn't think that they were going to be this bad. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is sort of not anything that I'd really projected in my mind. I do think there's a point when you keep losing like this that something has to be done. And so when we get to that point, I guess one of the things I'll say that is that I think David's going to get some rope here. I think he deserves it too. 10 games,
Mm-hmm.
11 games is too early. Can he turn this team not around into a playoff team, right? But can he turn his team around to a competitive team?
Sure.
And a lot of this is expectations, right? If the Sharks were projected to be a Stanley Cup contender and you start the season 0-10-1 and you lose 2 games by 17 goals, then yeah, your ass is canned. You probably don't even get to game 11 if that's your record. You might get to game
Mm-hmm.
6 or 7 and you're canned, right? What were the expectations for this Sharks team? Now I've heard some people say that they were expected to be this bad. I don't believe most people thought that, actually, that this bad.
Mm.
I don't think anyone
No,
thought that they were going to be
I thought they were
historically
the
bad.
worst team in the NHL, but not
Right,
like a
not
historically bad
historically
team.
bad, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the projection was that they would be among the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league. Like if David had been able to get them up to 28th in the league or 7th in the division, I would say, wow, great job. Excellent. You've defied expectations. So wow. So what is expectation here? The expectation is, I think, that they are competitive. They lose games, but they're competitive. And so there is time for David to get to that not very high bar, at least in the big picture, not very high bar. And I think he has enough bodies and talent to do it, even if a lot of, honestly, they do have a lot of mercenaries this year, kind of, and maybe that's part of the problem. But it is obviously his job to kind of get them together, to kind of uh, get them uh, get them on the same beat, marching to the same drummer. And so, can he do that? Say by the All-Star break, that they can be competitive at least. Then why? Then at that point, he's done his job. Why would you? Why would you fire him? And he's giving you a 11 game head start toward the best draft lottery odds with his 0-10-1
It's
starts.
true. It's helpful.
So yeah, so if you look at it that way, and can he reach that bar? To me, that's the test. If the team is this bad the entire season, if you get to the trade deadline and your goal differential is minus 200, which is, I think, about what their rate is, then yeah, I personally like David, but just you can't be that bad. You can't be that embarrassingly bad and expect to keep your job. But
Mhm.
if he can coach his way out of this with the people he has, and I think he can. Then, and again, coach's way out of it is just to be competitive. It
Mhm.
starts in small chunks. They started off 0-9-1. That's 1 10 game chunk. The next 10 game chunk, can you reduce the goal differential by, say, half? Not asking a lot, and maybe
Yeah.
win a
Get a
game,
win.
get a
Yeah.
win in there, right? Oh, great, you did that. The next 10 game chunk, when maybe win 3 games and get that goal differential down to like evenish, right? And so on, right? If you can just kind of have small signs, celebrate. Actually, did a story that I put out today, talking with Mike Sullivan. And we talked with Mike. Mike was here, obviously, coaching the Penguins, or taking the Penguins against the Sharks yesterday. But the Penguins were here for a couple of days though, and anyway, so we're able to touch on a number of topics with him, and one of them was Mike was on the original Sharks expansion teams, the expansion
Mhm.
team that won 17 games, the second year team that won just 11 games. And so he has a perspective of, well, how do you kind of get through hard years like this? How do you handle it? And one of the things he said was, you got to celebrate the small victories.
Yeah.
And so it's not about peeling off a 10 game winning streak and getting yourself back in the playoff hunt. It's not about winning Stanley Cup, obviously, but the small victories. So you can just make some progress throughout the season. Get William Eklund producing and keep him responsible, a good teammate. Get a great example of this. Actually, I probably should have added that in my article, because I mentioned Eklund in this article about Sullivan, but Philippe Zadina, I talked about him, right? And just how he's a very talented player, and he works hard too. That's the thing that's sort of not baffling, but sort of how do you say? It's not the typical talented but not hardworking kid. He works
Mhm.
hard. He competes. He wants it, but the problem is maybe he wants it too bad, and I think it gets in his own way. And can you turn this kid around and get him to play like it's always 0-0? Not think
Yeah.
about the score too much, not think about his own stats, not think about, oh, I'm not scoring, I'm a scorer, I'm not scoring. Get him to play the same way consistently. If you can do that, then you should keep your job through the rebuild, because that's exactly what a rebuilding coach needs to do. It needs to turn a guy like Zadina, who is going the wrong way in his career, obviously, right? Or he would have ended up with the Sharks. If you can turn a talent, but an obvious talent, if you can turn a talent like that around, then you have justified your position as the coach of the Sharks. I'm not just putting, it's not just Zadina. Maybe Zadina doesn't work out. I'm not saying that that
Mhm.
means that David Quinn has failed, but like there's other guys like that on the Sharks, that if you can turn a couple of these young guys around, and we actually have seen a little bit with Zetterlund, right? They've built up Zetterlund. They didn't lose him last year when he was slumping, right? And he came back and he's been good. So he's an example of a guy that has grown. And so you have a couple more success stories like that. And again, Zadina is a great one, because Zadina is going the wrong way, and so can you
Mhm.
get him going the right way? Eklund's a little different, but Bordelot is a good case example of this too. And so get a couple of these guys going the right way, and your record's going to be better because your young players are playing better anyway. Inevitably, your record will be better, and then you have sort of a core, right? A young core,
Mhm.
and then we get to again 25, 26, 2025, 26, which we talked about earlier in this podcast. So if you can't do that, though, and again, if you get to All-Star break and your goal differential is still a joke, and you're on pace for league worst there, and
Yeah.
no one is really turning around, then yeah, then you might have to fire David Quinn right there. But I don't think it's. I know you were not happy with what you saw last night, but I
Yeah.
think it's too early. I think that you have to give a rebuilding coach a chance
Mhm.
to rebuild, to build up his guys, right? That's the rebuild, obviously that word, but it also ties into just building up your guys that are low on confidence or lower on confidence or whatever, because that's how they end up on rebuilding teams, right? Can you build them
Sure.
up into something? And yeah, so I want to see a Quinn and his coaching staff get a chance at that.
Yeah, I guess okay. So I don't want to go into like a back and forth thing, and obviously I think there is merit to keeping David Quinn for longer. Like you're saying, if there is a chance to turn it around, he should be able to get that chance. I think my point was that these types of losses are not just like um bad for now. They're going to be they could theoretically harm you in this future rebuild. So the longer that you prolong this type of losing team, the whole thing last year was like we got to build up the culture, we got to have pride
Mhm.
in our locker room, we got to compete hard. This is the two deadest Sharks teams ever I've ever seen on the ice ever. Even like very very bad losses or like the reverse sweep, all that shit. This is the worst two
Yeah, that
teams
doesn't
I've
even
ever
count. I
seen.
know. I know. I think Hertl said most embarrassing loss ever was the Vancouver loss. The 10-1 one.
Yeah, I'm just saying
And people were.
that.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying people were
Mhm,
saying like, oh,
yeah,
did you forget the reverse sweep? But
that's
that's not
embarrassing, but it's a different kind of loss.
the Kings are a really good team,
Yeah,
which everyone
exactly.
can acknowledge. Even the fans can acknowledge that too.
They
So that's
choked
not the same
in
thing.
those series. This one they didn't choke. They just don't
They just
have
were
anything
they just
bad.
weren't competing. Yeah. So
So
yeah. Anyway, go on.
I just see nothing left to gain from that much longer of this. Like maybe a couple weeks, but that's it. Because I just see harming guys like Eklund, um, who are trying their best to compete and are just I don't think it's sinking into a lot of guys on the team. And whether or not that's going to be better from a new coach, I don't know. But also David Quinn's not like a Stanley Cup winning coach. He's not like a Hall of Fame coach. He's an NHL coach.
Mhm.
And I think there are other options out there to see if you can not get so embarrassed every single night. So if it continues, like by Thanksgiving, if you're
Mhm.
still obviously like you lose two more games 10-1, I think he's gone at the end of those two more games, honestly.
I didn't
Um,
want to imagine that because that's never happened in angel history. So
ever. So I think he'd be gone. But I just think if you're not turning around anything by then and your leading scorer has 5 points or 7 points or something by Thanksgiving, your goal leader
so
has
you
four
have like a
goals.
3-week clock on this then basically.
I think so.
That's
That's in
yours.
my
Okay.
opinion.
Okay.
But it's not like, and it's also just, this is going to be Mike Grier's first decision except for bringing in his own staff. This is
Mhm.
the first change of his own plan.
Mhm.
So a lot of this does reflect on Grier. Like
Of course.
these
Yeah.
losses don't just, and he's got to make a decision, right? Is this the coach that you think, even if you get through this period, is he going to be the one that's going to carry you to the next period?
Well,
Probably not,
we
but
don't know that, but I
we
would
don't know.
say
And
that
I like David
when
a lot, and I like the way that he talks, and I
Mhm.
like the some of the time. And actually, last year I loved how much fire he had behind the bench, and I loved how much like he got them to be competitive enough in games and like fun
he
and
really
offensively oriented.
he and Mike really unlocked Eric Carlson last year too. I think
Exactly.
that's sort of
They're missing it
forgotten.
this year, and
He
obviously There's no Erik
he
Karlsson.
helped turn a guy, the defenseman, the player with the least value in the league in terms of his contract, everything combined, right? His age, right? The literally the least valuable player in the league, I arguably in Erik Karlsson, and turned it into a neutral value asset. A guy that you could trade, but you won't get anything back, which is basically what happened because they had to take on all those bad contracts to get that first round pick. But basically, they were able to turn him into a neutral value. This is again, it was just astonishing. It was astonishing. And
so there is that.
Yeah, so it's not like he can't coach. That's in a whole nother argument or a whole nother a podcast. He doesn't ruin young players. Lafreniere and Kakko just aren't that good. Sorry, guys.
True.
Adam Fox is good, young player, did perfectly fine. Buchnevich, young player, did perfectly fine under David Quinn. So it's not about that. But he has I would say the biggest coaching challenge of his life, that he has this kind of wayward team, maybe of a bunch of mercenaries that just aren't gelling together, and he's got to find a way to get them to hammer them together. And
there's no structure. There's no
there is, but everyone leaves it. Everyone breaks it once some bad shit happens, right? So and so he's got to get those guys to play 60 minutes, whatever the score.
How many good periods can you remember from this year, though?
I mean, like a handful, literally. Yeah, I know. I know. It's been awful. There isn't any doubt about what we've seen out there, but I would just. Yeah, I there is a point, there is a breaking point, just like with Mike, there is a breaking point in terms of just how bad it can be. But I would give him a chance to at least get away from the abyss, right? And I think 3 weeks is a little short. I would give longer. But not
about the losses,
but not that much longer though, right? Because I'm talking like you're talking like 15 games. I'm talking like 30 more games or something like that, right? So we're not really talking that much differently. One thing I'll close though with the thought about Quinn is that when Mike hired him, I think the idea was that this is the right guy for a rebuild, and I think in a lot of ways he fits the profile. He has a reputation as a good teacher. He is patient. Yeah, you've had to be patient with this Sharks team. He is constantly, more often than not, he's positive, which is what you need when your team is bad and getting shit kicked a lot.
True.
And he tries to build up guys in general. A lot of one-on-one with players, and so I feel like. I feel like he was hired under that premise that he would be the right guy for a rebuild, and these are sort of these are like historic growing pains for a rebuild right now, at least at this pace, right? And I don't think anyone's thought again that it would be like this, right? But like these are growing pains, though. These are pains, right? And so you've hired a rebuild coach basically to guide your way through it. And so let's see if you can. And again, guide your way through it doesn't mean winning 10 of your next 12 games. It means winning 3 of your next 15 and shrinking that goal differential drastically. And guys just playing the right way, guys playing consistently, and guys playing for each other, and not letting your goalies get hit in the head, and all that stuff combined, right? Can you get this group together, however they need to do it? If they need to get rid of a couple of the quote unquote bad eggs, whoever they are, if he needs to send some messages to some young players, whatever you need to do, but also to send these messages, but also make sure that the young players, you don't lose them, that you still grow them, right? But yeah, I think again, he was brought in to be a rebuilding coach. We're in the Sharks are in a rebuild, so let's see if he can get get them back on track. Last year they were on track, I think, for most of the season.
Yeah, I don't think they were supposed to be as bad as they were last year. I think because
yes and no, because I do believe a lot of the
was poor, but
but a lot of the underlying stats, though, they really could have been a 500 team, at least up to trading Timo. Because I thought that I thought that there was a lot of good done last year, and even with whatever their record ended up being, they were still competitive. they lost all those overtime 1-goal games. So that's and that's fine.
So I don't even know if that means it's a good thing though, because that means that he couldn't win even anyway.
No, no one's arguing that. But again, what is the mandate? The mandate is not to make the playoffs. The mandate is not to win the Stanley Cup. The mandate is to be competitive.
Yeah,
right?
And they looked
and
like
they were very competitive last year.
Yeah, but this year they look so lifeless. Anyway, we're just
right. No, I agree with that. So can he get to anything resembling that, even without Erik Karlsson and a Timo Meier to help him? Right, that's part of the challenge, right? And I think a coach can, even with this lack of talent. Because these are still, a lot of these guys are still NHL players. I mean, they may not be Erik Karlsson, but should be able to do a lot better than they have. And so anyway, so we are just talking in circles in the sense of you have a little shorter of a leash, I have a little longer, but we still want to see the same thing. We're not asking for the world here. We're just asking for something that's watchable. And
honestly, like if Quinn was like benching Eklund every 2 games or doing some stupid things, I'd be like, yeah, get him out of here. Because like that would be annoying and I don't think warranted. But it's not like he's doing anything unwarranted. He's generally, his lineup decisions are fine. I think he's putting in players that are have earned it. He's sending down players that haven't. He's doing the right things.
More than anything, I would actually argue, I'm going to interrupt you a little bit here, that he has been too passive in a way, in the sense of what I mean by that is that honestly, Thomas Hertl had no business being a 2C at any point during the first 10 games. It should always been you gave him a shot because that's your prospect. You want to give him a shot. That's fine. That's great, right? That's what the fans want, right? But he had his lunch taken from him as 2C.
Sure.
It should have been Nico Sturm from game 1. Because Nico Sturm was the Sharks' second best. Not that Nico Sturm should be a 2C, but he was the Sharks' second best center with Granlund and Couture hurt. And so he gave guys chances because they're the guys, they're the organization's guys, the prospects, and you want to give them a look, right? And he gave them more games than honestly I think he should have, in terms of just like getting them back on a competitive track. I mean, if that's all we're worried about them being more competitive. And we saw these guys weren't ready. And Bortolo got sent down just a few games ago, but it really could have happened after game 4 or 5. Easily in my mind, just for example. And so so if anything, he's been giving these young guys a lot of rope, I think so.
Anyway, I still think Eklund's playing well too, but we're gonna get to Eklund's play at some
point. Just okay. But actually, though, you want to answer the part of the question? Just give a thought about John McCarthy, because you watch the Barracuda more. So, and when we talk about job security, we need to literally are going to talk about everybody in the organization. So John doesn't escape notice. So I'm going to give you the John one. Just your thoughts on John. What you've seen, what you've observed.
I don't think that the Barracuda are a very well coached team in general, and they haven't been that way this year or last year. And they are unstructured. They had a good win today. I watched their game today. I felt like that was a good team effort. Their team defense was a lot improved, but it's also like their first win, I think, in some amount of time.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's I like that he does give like his skill players a chance to succeed. He puts them, in power play minutes. He gives them the puck a lot. But it also,
I think Quinn does that too.
Yeah. But they just don't have a lot of team structure, I think. And even with like veteran guys going down and a significant amount of veteran players there, right? Simic is down there and everything. It's just they just have not been a very well coached team for like 2 years. So and McCarthy's a brand new coach essentially. I don't think his job security is, solid. He is a Sharks not legend. He's a Sharks, like, an ex-Shark kind of thing.
Sure, long-time Shark.
Yeah. So he might have a longer leash just from that, and maybe just to try and get his own feet wet at coaching. But it's not like, I personally don't think they're a very well coached team. That's the way that I would put it.
I have a last thought about Quinn too, that they lost a lot of players from last year beyond the obvious of Karlsson and Meier, but they lost a lot of guys who, I know people laugh at play the right way, but that's what those guys did, and those are the guys that, along with Carlson and Meyer, help keep the Sharks competitive. Guys like Bonino, guys like Matt Nieto, and so I think I would not how do you say um, undervalue the losses of guys like that too, because now you're filling in with just a lot more younger, just guys that just don't do the same things, that just aren't predictable. I think that's one thing that Quinn has talked about, that think guys are doing their own thing. They're not predictable out there for each other, and that leads to a lot of problems. And so guys like, again, the Matt Nieto, guys like that are predictable. So and Couture too, obviously, even though Couture is a higher skill player, but anyway,
it's missing
but
one in this lineup for sure.
But let's move on.
Next
Where
one
are
is
we at
from
now?
Supreme Dream.
Okay.
It's kind of a longer question. There's
Yeah,
two parts to it essentially, but first part is what's
let's
a good
just read the
strategy
basics of
for
it. Yeah, let's shorten this up. So
good strategy for building
yeah,
up the defense
yeah.
core, and then are there interesting first round D-men in the coming drafts? I think we'll actually do more draft related content when we get closer. So we'll answer the first part, which is how are the Sharks D
Just
prospects coming along, and how is a good strategy for building up the defense core.
well, just what is the strategy too? I guess, right? Like, what do
Yeah.
you feel would be a good strategy? Okay, so anyway, so yeah, do you want to go ahead?
What would be a good strategy? Or I think we talked about this too sometime during the off-season podcast, but the Sharks did a great job of rebuilding at least the depth of the decor for the Sharks, because for a long time our best prospects were Cannon Larocque and Ryan Merkley.
Yeah.
And now, we have Cagnoni, we've got Shakir Mukhamadullin, we got Henry Thrun, we have Matthias Havlid, we have Michael Fisher doing it or playing in the NCAA. We have guys that have been brought in the last two drafts by trade that seem to be like a very specific focus for Grier in improving the defense pipeline for the Sharks. I think Mukhabadullin's doing great in the AHL. Great is probably a little bit too excessive. I think he's doing well. He's also playing on the power play, which is helpful for his development. He's still developing, though, so he needs more time. But he's probably our highest ceiling defense prospect. I think Thrun is going to be an AHLer one day or eventually. I wouldn't say that he's a higher ceiling than Mukhabadulin. Neither of them are really first pairing type guys, I think. So we are missing that. I think that's the next swing for the Sharks in terms of they need another forward piece and they need a first line piece on defense. So that's the next strategy. There are guys in the upcoming drafts that can do that.
A bit here, but anyway. I said my glasses are fogging up a bit, so.
Oh, okay. Yes.
That's all. But anyway, I don't have any big problem with how the Sharks are building out their defense. I think one thing I like about it too is that there's a mix of guys in terms of different skills. There's better puck mover types like Havlid and Mukhammadulin. There's physical types like a Hotiak and Guriev. There's more defensive combo two-way guys like Thrun. So I think it's a good mix. Also Cagnoni, right? More puck mover. Landon, we just saw him with a big hit, right? In a game recently. And so it's a good different mix of guys. Obviously not all of them will hit. But I don't feel like it's way too much. I know Mike does like the big physical types like Hotiak, but there's not too many of them though.
No, not that many.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Right? Because Mukhammadulin's not that. Cagnoni's not that. Havlit's not that, and so on, right? And so I think it's a good blend of guys that they seem to have, and you're just hoping that you get a few hits out of it. But so I don't have any issue with how they are how they're building out their defense.
Yeah, I think it's you're right that eventually a couple of these guys are going to hit, and then if you watch prospects enough, and then you kind of realize like, well, this guy's pretty good. If you have 10 of those guys that, well, this guy's pretty good. Some of them are going to pan out. So I think he's done a good job with that. It's been a hallmark of his starting the rebuild is rebuilding the defense. So
Cool. So next we have Teddy here, and Teddy asks essentially, are there any prospects on the Barracuda that are on the fast track to come up this season? And so I'm gonna give Keegan the mic on this one because he's our Barracuda guy.
Mm-hmm. I think that given how the Sharks cannot score any goals, that Daniel Gushchin is going to be called up soon. I don't know if it's going to be like in a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. I just have a feeling that he's been tearing up the AHL. He scored a beauty of a goal today. It's not like he's a very well-rounded player right now. Like he does try to be a well-rounded player, but he doesn't have the physicality necessary to really be it. But I don't know. The Sharks are kind of missing a dude that's going to put the puck in the
everything.
net. So
Yeah.
give
Is
him
he
a
better
shot.
this year? Is he? How much better is he? And just in your observation,
I think he's offense. Like his confidence with the puck is a lot better at the AHL level. So I like that. I don't think the physicality or the unnecessary turnovers are any better. I think those are still there with his game. So I don't anticipate he will be like with the Sharks long term, but I think they're going to give him enough swing to try and get him to score some goals. I honestly think. I think he still needs more time to. He does turn the puck over at really inopportune times, and he tries to overhandle to try and make up for his mistakes.
Yeah, I've seen that at NHL. We've seen that at NHL. Yes, yeah.
So he still does that. Whether or not that's going to hopefully will improve over the next few years, but his offense really has like come alive a little bit. He's like the primary offensive driver for the Barracuda, which is exactly what I wanted him to be doing right now, which is taking the reins of Eklund being gone.
That's true. Yeah,
and being the guy, and that's what he's done. You know, it'd be effective on the power play, put up points, and be the offensive driver. So
okay. Next we have John Swenson. If you don't know that name, John Swenson used to run an incredible page, Sharks page, which I know some of you longtime fans will remember. So it's an honor. Hello, John, that you would ask a question on here. But John's question is essentially, who is the best goaltender not in the NHL? And Keegan, I'm going to give this one to you too because you have very strong opinions about this. Yep.
Back to back. Speaking of the Barracuda playing Dustin Wolf today, he led in an uncharacteristic 3 goals, which sounds like
lost his first game ever to the Barracuda.
Yeah, but he's putting up something like he's like a 927 save percentage in the AHL since he came over from, or since he came from the WHL, which he also had like a 930 save percentage in the WHL. The dude is a monster. He's competitive. He has this feeling that, like, when you watch him, that the puck's just not going to go by him. Like, he's always anticipating play super well. He is short. That's his only downfall. But Dustin Wolf, I think, is the best goaltender not playing in the NHL. I think there's arguments for Jesper Wallstedt. He's playing very well. He's like a machine. He's like just a very technically sound goaltender he did step into pro hockey at like a 16-year-old. So he could step into pro hockey whenever, or like NHL hockey soon. But I think I would put Dustin Wolf just because he has that it factor. It's going to go with the it factor that I think both will be great starting goaltenders, but I'm going to go.
Bonus question then for John here. If the Sharks had an opportunity to acquire one of them, what's the highest pick you would give for a Wolf?
I would give the Penguins pick.
Easily. Wow.
Easily.
Wow. Okay.
And it's like a very big improvement from a 7th round pick, which is what he was.
Yeah.
But the Sharks have Mackenzie Blackwood. But if they could get a superstar goaltender like Wolf or Wallstedt, I don't know.
You think that Wolf can be a Saros? Hell, you clearly think so. If you're going to give up a first round pick,
if you look at their first couple years in the AHL, they're almost identical, with actually Wolf being a little bit better than Saros, and they're pretty much the exact same size. Wolf has been dynamite every single place he's played, and he looks the part too. So. I don't know. I'm not a goalie scout. Everybody always says that when they're like evaluating prospects, that they're not a goalie scout. You could talk to like a handful of people that like love goalies more than anything,
sure.
and they'll probably also agree with you that Wolf is extremely good.
We're the first round pick though. Okay, well that's a bold prediction.
Why wouldn't you? Like, what would be the downside, right? Like, Sharks have possibly 3 first-round picks, unless the Penguins is like there's somebody that's right there.
I'm more conservative with goalies. Maybe like I'm more of the now it's an old school way of thinking that just maybe not invest that much in it.
Maybe
until you draft
and
until you
I
draft a
would
guy.
want to see him like play a few games in the NHL to make sure he's not going to get immediately just like for some reason this 2-inch space above his shoulder is going to be the answer and it's over. I don't know.
Yeah, and also too that with the Sharks he's gonna get shelled too, so you gotta make sure that he has the sort of the mental space to do that.
Georgi Romanov is the best goaltender not playing in the NHL. He's been good. Romanov's been good.
Yeah, he's been good, and the number one star apparently. So
he had a good game.
And I have a tease for you guys too that. I have hired a new writer, and I will tell you guys more about him later. But expect some actually strong. Really, I've actually read some of the stuff. Some strong Georgi Romanov content, like stuff that that I think I don't want to overhype it because I don't know how good Romanov's going to be. But in terms of just like we knew nothing about Romanov, and we still know nothing about him because he doesn't really speak English, so we can't really interview him. So everything we know about Romanov is through Gushing.
Amazing.
And so that's what I mean. I don't mean anything like amazing, groundbreaking, and sort of like breaking news right away, but just that you're going to learn a lot about Romanov.
That's great.
From my new writer that you did not know. Because
is Gushing breaking down his game?
No, it's not Gushing. No, it's because my new Daniil Gushing is not my new writer. But my new writer is Russian, and so it's going to be some really interesting perspective from that.
That's awesome.
So I'm very excited to unleash him on San Jose Hockey now. So that'll happen soon. But let's get to Finco. Again, thank you, Finco. Very loyal reader, commenter. So thank you so much all these years. So Finco has a number of questions, but I think the one we're going to focus on, because I think we've answered like one of Finco's questions that made Keegan very upset because Keegan is a huge Gushing fan. Is Keegan or Finco asked, has Gushing been playing like an NHLer in the Barracuda, or have his numbers been more empty calorie Joachim Blichfeld stuff? Look at Keegan's face explode.
Joachim Blichfeld is the definition of empty calorie, and Gushing is not. That's the end all be all.
But though you admit that Gushing is does have a lot of shortcomings in terms of
he needs to be 4 inches
defensively
taller.
And yeah, so Keegan is not guaranteeing Gushing's NHL stardom, but
he needs to be 4 inches taller. It needs to be heavier and bigger, and yeah, it's sad because you don't want to say that that's the reason why.
Actually, Keegan, I'm gonna add an extra question for Finco just because again a loyal commenter reader. So give you just a quick quiz. Your top 10 Sharks prospects generally, are there any you see as a fast track to the NHL? Yeah, because I know Cam Lund's had a nice start to the season. Beasted, fast track, like might get a little faster than expected because they're just excelling so far this year in a surprising way, I guess. I think Luka Madulin has an argument for this because I think we didn't have an idea of what he was 2 years, like when the Sharks acquired him, like how long it would take for him. And we saw in training camp, we saw, I think, a more advanced player than I think we projected. And so
I think Luka Madulin is probably the best.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that one. Will Smith, maybe if they decide to pull him out of college early. I don't think that he would do very amazing at the NHL level, but I think that he would be fun to see. And it's possible, but I would say Luka Madulin is probably the most realistic answer out of the top 10.
So we kind of agree on that. Okay. And then one more question from Finco. This one I'll take. Finco asked me that he mentioned that I always gave Bob Boughner a lot of credit for his candor, transparency, and how I found David Quinn in this respect. And actually, I'm going to say that I was really sorry to lose Bob because Bob was great. If you remember the stories that I wrote with Bob's comments, Bob would love, or not, I won't say love, but he was very willing to break down a player and his strengths and weaknesses. It really made for very good stories, very enlightening stories. And also Bob was honest about his team. If his goalie sucked, if this sucked, he would kind of tell you, and sometimes he would say that like goaltending wasn't good enough. so so I thought that first, we're losing Bob, or we're not going to find a better coach to deal with. But David has been great to deal with, and I think his answers are great. And he's not quite the same as Bob. They're obviously not the same guy, but in terms of just overall candor, transparency, has been very, very solid for the both of them. And so for my job, I've been lucky, and overall, both those guys have had a lot of and I've had a lot of patience too, with bad Sharks teams, and with constant questions about bad Sharks teams. I know that David did not like my line of questioning yesterday about his job security, but that's the first time, I think, in 93 games that he has expressed that kind of ire, which is pretty good, because the Sharks have won only 22 games out of the last 93. So, and so Bob was the same way. That I think he was pretty good, and I think I think that they're both very, very good. So yeah. Let's move on to Amy. Amy Worth comments a lot on Twitter, so thank you very much for jumping on here. And her question is, and we've answered this in different ways, but her question is, I've assumed that Grier and Quinn have a long leash and a low bar, which is, I think, right on, and we've talked about that. But is no wins in 10 games just too much? Are either at risk? I think right now, right, is what we're asking, right? And I think we have answered it, but just to say it again, that I don't think they are at risk right now. I would even venture to say that if the Sharks give up 20 goals over the next 2 games, that I think that Dave is still safe, because again, it's about growth. If you give up 40 goals in 4 games, that is something, right? But though, I would say though that again, though, you had to give him, what if in 20 games or so, that he has shaped them back into a competitive team, then he's done his job, right? So it doesn't matter that there was that 4-game stretch where they gave up 40 goals, right? Because they are competing. They're competing. So no, I don't think that any of them are at risk. Okay, next question.
So we actually have one in between this one that is.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Did I skip?
You skipped the listing. This one I just looked and we didn't add it on there. It's from Jod V. It
no,
Sheng.
I actually am reading off the comment. So actually, I didn't know that.
I just don't have a little graphic.
I'm sorry. Oh no, you don't have a graphic for
Jod V.
Oh no,
we're gonna say his name a bunch because we don't.
And he has a nifty icon on San Jose Hockey Now, a commenter. Well, we're sorry about that, Jod. But
I apologize, Jod V.
But his question is, well, this one's also for me. When are you gonna get on Threads? X is a dumpster fire, and I can't see your zeets. Is that what they call it? I call them tweets though, but in chronological order, because the site is so broken. Is that the case? You can't see tweets in chronological order, like when you look at it?
You can on profiles, but like when you go to For You, they'll jumble them all up and shit.
Oh yeah, that's kind of stupid. But like, you can still click on my profile in order, right? That's what I thought, right? Okay, well. Sure. John. So I'm sorry about that. A lot of people have asked me that about jumping on different social media platforms. I've received a few. Thank you. I appreciate it. Blue Sky invites. I am on. I think San Jose Hockey Now is on Threads, but I don't really have anything on there. And look, I have a lot on my plate on a day-to-day basis, right? And so one of the things that worked that I was very happy with and worked easily for years before Elon Musk took over was Twitter. I got verified. That was an achievement back then. That wasn't something you paid for. That was awesome. Cool. Put something out there, direct line to Sharks. It was smooth, right? But my point is that, like, I want that to be something where I don't have to think about it, because I don't have enough time in my day to gentrify social media spaces, different ones. Like, I need to find one that is ready made to go for me, because I'm doing other stuff. I'm writing stories. I'm covering the team. And so if any of them, I would be happy to leave X. I don't like what they've done with it. I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk, et cetera, et cetera. But until we get to a point where there's a legitimate competitor, it's hard for me to divide my
Sure.
attention and then post in 4 different places or whatever. Right now, I post in Twitter, I post in Facebook because they're the largest drivers of traffic. That's where people still go, even with all the problems on these sites, right?
Mhm.
And so, if and when Threads gets there, or Instagram is better for stories, right? Instagram obviously is great for pictures and stuff, but Blue Sky, any of those, Mastodon, whatever, right? I'm there. I'm there. I don't like X. Like I said, I don't like Twitter.
Yeah.
But until we get to that point, though, it needs to be a little set it and forget it for me. Uh,
Mhm.
Channel, it just aren't a lot of people, enough people working here that it's something that I don't have a social media guy to do it for me. So yeah, so I'm sorry about that, John. I want to, I want to, I want to be everywhere. I would like to be everywhere, but I'm not able to. So I need to kind of concentrate on the biggest, kind of the biggest drivers. But I have no loyalty, so so
Sure.
so once Elon starts charging $1 a month and people abandon X,
Yeah.
then okay, then I'll take a pick somewhere and go somewhere else. So
Yeah.
next we have Jam and John. And Jam and John's general question is just, how high would you draft a defenseman in general, and how far would the Sharks have to fall in the draft before you take a defenseman? I guess
Mhm.
he's asking specifically about the upcoming draft. And so,
2024.
Keegan, what do you think?
I'd still stick with our like original like preseason thing where
Mm-hmm.
I think the top three you'd go forward, and then four
Mm-hmm.
you'd pick somebody like Levshunov or Siaev, um, somebody like that. You really don't
Mm-hmm.
want to swing for a guy that's going to have the full package for you. And a
Mm-hmm.
guy like Siaev or Levshunov, both of them kind of fit that bill. I don't think I would take them above Iserman or. I mean, Demidov hasn't had a. He's been kind of in and out of multiple lineups and has been
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. Hasn't had a very productive beginning of his career so far. He also
Mm-hmm.
plays for notably the worst run KHL team in the world. Um, it's basically like because Ska basically doesn't like their young players, so he's been kind of sent down to the minors
Mm-hmm.
and back and forth and around. But anyway, I still think those three are probably your highest ceiling offensive players for right now. This all will change by the end of May, by the end of everybody's seasons. So maybe Silyaev or Levshunov are the guys to take it to, but I would personally say four is probably where I would take a defenseman.
And I would just say generally, because it's so early to say right now,
Sure.
that you just get the best player. It doesn't matter
Yep.
the position or whatever. And so whoever is there, the Sharks need help everywhere, as we've seen on the SAP Center also, and at XCU Reno with the Barracuda, and actually even the ECHL. They have not been good at any level this year so far,
I
actually.
have not
But
paid attention to the ECHL.
I actually looked at it because I wanted to write a funny tweet, because I thought that they were really bad, but they're actually just 3-5-2, so they're just mediocre. But
Fun. Wow.
anyway, though, so they need help everywhere, and so
Sure.
it doesn't matter except the position, and
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, for myself, I need to do a lot more digging into the 2024
Hmm.
draft class. I've got a lot
Yep,
of
I do too. Yeah.
digging to do. Basically, lots of game watching to happen for me. I've been focusing more on the Sharks prospects and also the
Hmm.
Sharks because it's kind of fun to watch this tire fire of a team. And then I think I'll transition to more prospect stuff in the next couple months.
Yep, and to call back a question we got from earlier from, I believe, Lizbeth, it is definitely not too early to focus on the 2024 draft. So we will definitely
It's
be
all
doing
we
a lot
care
of that.
about.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's all we have to live for, guys. So
Hmm.
so next, I love this question from Summoning Salt. So celebrity question. So welcome to the podcast, Summoning. And
Awesome.
I'm gonna read this question exactly as you wrote it because I think it's hilarious. So in 1984, sorry, I already messed it up. Sorry, summoning. In 1984, Wayne Gretzky injured his shoulder. In his time gone from the team, the Oilers went into a tailspin, losing 5 straight while being outscored 33-9. This included brutal beatings of 9-2 and 11-0.
Parallels.
Is it possible that Logan Couture is Wayne Gretzky and the Sharks are the 1983 for Edmonton Oilers?
There it is. You got through it. Speaking of geeking out, that was the geeking out moment for me. Was just that Summoning Salt watches our videos. I was like, wait a minute, I know you. So it's like a weird molding of the minds for me. Just two different spheres of my life. I was like, hold on a minute. Anyway,
does this count for calling back to your first question as your geek out moment?
This is it. I think it was when Summoning. I had actually messaged Summoning Salt on Twitter. He's a very nice guy. We've talked a little bit. But is it possible that Logan Couture is Wayne Gretzky? Yeah. Sure.
I mean, why not? Anyway, also too, somebody follow his YouTube, right? That's most famously on YouTube, right? So
Yes.
so if you do not follow that, then follow, or if you don't follow him there. But anyway, though, so is it possible that Logan Couture is? I actually will go against that and bold prediction or hot take. No, Logan Couture is not Wayne Gretzky.
What? Come on. He's Wayne Gretzky to this team because anybody is Wayne Gretzky to this
and
team that can actually
my question
score.
actually is, who would win in a game right now, the 2023-24 Sharks or the 1983-84 Oilers right now?
Without Gretzky. Oh, you mean like
Right now. Like right now. Like with TNT Wayne Gretzky.
with TNT. I don't know. I've seen some of the wrist shots he goes on there. They're not great.
I see some of the wrist shots from this year's Sharks. They're also not great.
Not great. I'm gonna go with Sharks, but it's close. I love it.
All right. So
Somebody Salt, thank you for commenting.
Yes.
And, anytime you want to be on the podcast, we would love to have you. That would be amazing.
Next we have Brown-Ageddon. Yes, I think. Yeah, I think that's how you say that, right? And I like this question because this is a good detail question because I think Keegan and I will disagree a little bit, but I think there's also a lot of detail to this. So, just how has William Eklund played this year? Where has he excelled? And what, if anything, where has he been bad? And so you go ahead.
I think I'll start with the bad. Specifically, I think he needs to, especially when he's challenging puck carriers on the cycle. So when he's in the defensive zone, he's coming up to a puck carrier. He often will predict that they're going to beat him and then actually just kind of ignore where he should put his stick. So he's like already trailing with his stick behind him, thinking he's going to get beat instead of actually challenging the defender. It's just kind of like a pet peeve of mine in terms of like a specific thing that he's doing that I want him to stop. He needs to be like actively trying to get the puck away from people instead of just being in the way.
Is it one of those things though that where if he gets beat though, it's worse though, right? He's trying to.
It's not like he needs to get out of position, but he needs to maintain like a position that he could steal the puck. He doesn't even maintain the position that he could. He's like already kind of turning, expecting to get beat. And I feel like he could like at least try and hamper some things defensively. I think that's something that, it also comes from just being beat constantly, and your team getting in 20 goals. I do like his puck carrying on the boards. I think he's had a couple of good moments of that. Yeah, I think there's also been some good playmaking. He's set up a lot of chances. He, notably guys have not been able to finish those chances, but I think he has been setting up.
Yeah.
He has not produced though. And I don't think it's all on him. Obviously, a lot of guys aren't producing, and he's the youngest player on this team. So it's not going to be on him to be the productive force, but he needs to start doing a little bit more offensively. I don't know what he could do, but yeah. And I don't think his shot has improved, but he still needs to work on that as well.
Yeah. So I would start along with those lines. So the shot needs to be more of a weapon, more of a threat still. He still is. I think you play him to pass all the time and you're still pretty safe. And so that if he's going to be even a 50, 60 point guy, that can't be the case. And
Sure.
so he's got to keep working on that. And he has improved it significantly from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's
So
definitely better than then.
yeah. So he's working on it. Um, I think, and this might be an experience thing, and I've noted it in my game notes a couple of times that a couple of times he just is simply just erased from a play.
Mhm.
And there are times where maybe the better decision was just to get it deep instead of just letting himself get erased and turning it over right there. And I
Sure.
think that's going to come with some experience about knowing his time, because he's not the biggest guy. He's not going to be able to beat this guy or that guy with his quickness sometimes because he just gets the puck in the wrong place, flat-footed, whatever, all kinds of different things, right? But then he's got to make that decision. Then, okay, I'm not going to sometimes, and this happens with young players and with skill players, and obviously on a bad team too, that tries to do too much,
Sure.
and that's a natural thing to do. But he's got to learn to not do that, and I think he will. I think a lot of his offense has been. This is just anecdotal, but a lot of his offense has been that pass behind the net,
Yeah.
behind the line, right? And so he's got to have a little more variety than that because again, if in this league, if you have only one way of being dangerous offensively, someone's going to cut that off, and we've seen that a couple times when that has been cut off. And
Yeah.
so just we need to add kind of a bit more variety to his attack. I would say. Um, but overall, though, I think that the promise is there. The effort is generally there. I do like that. There's no quit. I also have like to just it's a small thing that I noticed, and I don't know what he actually thinks about this and what people think about this, like his teammates. But I when Duclair scored yesterday to make it 4-1. It was so funny to watch the reaction of Duclair was like, like finally,
Mm.
Duclair had a reaction of the normal veteran reaction of that veterans have when they score a goal in a game that they're getting shit kicked, which is like whatever. And Eklund came up to him like arms wide, like he
Yeah.
just scored an OT, and I don't think I think both players were right in that situation. I'm not saying that one was wrong, one or the other was wrong. And I guess what I'm getting at with William is I like his kind of his enthusiasm. The team needs a lot of positivity, a
Yeah.
lot of optimism to get out of this mess. And what I do like about William, at least my opinion, is that he's a guy that I actually do think. We talked about how William is affected by all this, that he might be okay from this just because I do find him to be I think he's more reserved, but he is kind of strong of mind on his own to some degree,
Mhm.
where he's not as I think influenced by the stuff around him.
Sure.
Like he is a little more suited, I think, like than say versus Adina, which is what I've talked about a lot in this episode, of playing like it's 0-0, even if the score is 7-0.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Just
agree
just
with
it
that
just
too.
sort of he does have a bit of a calmness to his game and his personality. And
Mhm.
it's sort of how do you say I get a sense of sort of a uh methodical, can
Yeah.
kind of keep doing it like a metronome, like just
Yeah, like a
constant.
professional kinda.
Yeah, kind of like that. He has a little bit more of that already in him, even though he's only 21.
Mhm.
And so that's what the team needs. They need guys, not I mean, they need 12 William Eklund, sure, in terms of skill and talent, but
Yeah.
they need a bunch of guys like that, and just in terms of I think personality, and just in terms of games 5-1, he does a better job. It's tough, but he does a better job when the team is down of keep going at it, keep going at it,
Yeah. His
and
effort is never really in question, I don't think,
I
which
haven't
is
seen too
just
much
good.
of that as problematic with him. Yeah, which is part of the reason why he's here, and some of the other guys
So
aren't, honestly. So,
the other
um, yeah.
sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Because Eklund went through just a really, really bad season in Garden when he got sent back, and his team was very, very bad.
Sure.
They finished, they ended up getting relegated, and they're still relegated to the
Mm-hmm.
Allsvenskan. So he played through all that. Like I remember watching him every single game, just this like, and this is his hometown team. This is like his like childhood team. This is
Yeah.
like every night they're losing games, and he's like part of that them losing games. And eventually they lose the biggest game and get relegated. So I think going through that kind of thing has kind of prepared him to be on a losing team pretty well. Like,
so
he
he's
still
prepared for the
plays.
Sharks to get relegated to AHL. That's good. That's a
Honestly,
good experience to have.
I just mean, like, it's true, but I don't want, because like at the end of the year though, when he was playing on that U-guarded team, all of his offensive creativity kind of like dissipated, and his whole job was like dig pucks out of the corner, shuffle to the guy at the point. And I don't want that to be the case with Eklund, but I feel like at the end of this year, it might turn into that, where that's what he's going to be, is like, shuffling pucks, trying to get puck back, a lot of effort, smart positionally most of the time, but like the creativity, I don't want him to lose. And you're right, that one pass is kind of what has been working for him. It's the only thing that's really working for him in the NHL level in terms of offensive output. So he does need to put some more
Working
wrinkles.
at a high level, I would say, though. I'm going to give him that much. It's not like
That's
it's just
great.
a couple
Yeah.
passes, right? Yeah, he's made
No, he's doing well
multiple
at it. He's
passes from
deceptive
about the
when you
same
can.
place. Yeah, in
And it's
ice.
good
Yeah.
to add those things to your repertoire, but once, like, if he stops at that pass and then he can't do anything else because the rest of the 95% of the time he's not able to get in positions to see the ice because he's too busy doing whatever, to try and prevent them from being scored on, I feel like his game won't evolve. So I do worry about that in terms of what we could be doing, or what the Sharks could be doing to make Eklund's play evolve a little bit more, to just not be the best third line forward in the NHL, to just be like an actual good top six center or top six forward. So I do worry about that, and that's also where I think coaching might come in too. It's not like Quinn's been bad on Eklund; he's clearly appreciating his effort and giving him power play time and all that. Um, I don't know. It's just I do worry these bad losses can hurt you in a long term fashion in that way. So I had some thoughts after a couple of these games that were very sad, and I was like, man, are we ruining Eklund? I'm kind of worried, but I think he'll be fine. He's stoic. He's a kid.
Yeah, a little bit of that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I tend to think he should be okay, but
Mhm.
we'll see. Okay,
Yeah.
next we have Christian, who I met in Europe too. So hello, Christian. Good to see you on here. Essentially, his question is that are we witnessing a perfect storm that I like how he worded it actually. Are we witnessing a perfect storm that might blow the Sharks out of San Jose?
Nice.
Very well worded. Yeah,
Yeah.
very fitting.
PB.
Great headline. Yeah.
Oklahoma City Tornadoes. There
Yeah, great, great,
you go.
yeah, great headline for a story. Anyway, essentially, Hasso is older and team is bad. Uh, People aren't watching. So might the Sharks move out of San Jose? And that's the question that I teased. That's my job security questions.
Yes, it is. You're doing a podcast about the Charlotte Checkers soon.
Yeah, because yeah, I'm not doing that from San Francisco though. So
Sheesh. Oh no.
so yeah, I'm gonna have to cover the Stockton Heat. Oh wait, they're not here anymore. So,
Ah, damn it.
but I mean, it's hard to answer this question. I mean, if we project a long distance, I mean, I don't know who takes over the Sharks. I mean, if we have to speak honestly about this. If Hasso or something were to happen to Hasso, I don't know who takes over the Sharks. So I think that's a fair thing to investigate. So I guess it's not impossible. I guess. I think that in terms of the league perspective, and the league does not we've seen right with the Coyotes and other teams that they don't move teams lightly. So I think that the Sharks have built up a lot of credit for, and I mean, this is thanks to the fans and thanks to Doug
Mhm.
Wilson and Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau and Joe Pavelski, right? That they've been able to build. I mean, 25 years of really good credit. They've shown that if the team is competitive, that the fans will come.
Mhm.
And so I think that's going to be a big part of it. It's not like Atlanta that has never, and granted, Atlanta, there's a lot of reasons why Atlanta didn't succeed, the Thrashers, the Flames, but those there was never a stretch where you would say the fans came out to support the Thrashers, a long stretch where the fans came out to support the Thrashers or the Flames. The Sharks have a good legitimate 25 years or so of regular support of long sellout streak, 200 game sellout streak, 200 game plus sellout streak, or near sellouts for, like I said, a better part of 25 years since they moved into San Jose Arena in 1993. So I think that's going to buy them a lot, where a lot of credit. Where if the Sharks did seeking out new ownership for whatever reason, if Hasso just decides to sell the team, he doesn't want to
Mhm.
deal with the aggravation of watching a team lose back-to-back games by 17 goals. I would understand. We would understand that, but I think that it wouldn't just be sold to a team, sold to an owner whose plan is to move them out of San Jose. If you think about it
Sure.
too, that San Jose is the NHL's foothold in the Bay Area. It's not like there's a team in San Francisco. It's not like there's a successful team in Oakland. And why would you give up the Bay Area like that, area market like that? So I think the NHL would bend itself over backwards to find the right owner. So now I think about it. To give a fuller thought to your question, it's a good question, Christian, but I'm not seeing it. I know it's bad now. But why would the NHL just give up this market? Why would the NHL ignore 25 years of near sellouts? And the NHL works here. Like, there's
Mhm.
no doubt about that, right? Like, I don't think anyone questions that we saw for 25 years. Uh, Everyone still talks about it, just how loud SAP Center was, how hard it was to play at in the years of the California death trip, right? LA,
Mhm.
Anaheim, San Jose, but even before that, right? Um, so yeah, the team is awful now. Crowds are bad, but that's what happens in a rebuild.
Sure.
And to expect any different, right? I think is arrogant that, oh, the Sharks should still sell out, even though they're telling you to watch Kyle Burrows and Jacob McDonald as your number one PP1 quarterback. You're not.
McDonald hype train? Or...
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't sell out last year, right? Not even close, right? With Erik Karlsson putting up 101 points. Like,
Mm.
you gotta put a winning product out there. I think that's what
Yeah.
we've seen. You can't just throw out players that they recognize. We saw that, like, the Sharks have tried to hang on for years with the Brent Burns and the Hertls and the names you recognize on the back. That's not enough.
Yep. Team's
But
got to be good.
the team's got to be good. But on the other hand, though, we've seen that it works. That it works when the team is winning, when it's competitive, and so I don't think the NHL would. I think those are two big things there. That the Sharks have. That, let's say you use the Coyotes here in your question. That the Coyotes have never had, right? Or
Yeah.
we talk about the Atlanta teams, right? The Thrashers have never had that long string of success. And, well, I guess Atlanta is similar in the market, so I'll give them that. Atlanta's market, and even
Mhm.
actually Arizona, they're both very good markets. So maybe, I don't know if they're quite the Bay Area, but they're both very good
Yeah.
markets. But yeah, they just haven't had that track record of success. So yeah, I'm not seeing it. I think the Sharks are safe here through virtually anything.
Yeah. The Sharks fans are smart and they know the product that's happening. And I think now that they're kind of being sold a rebuild, I think that once this kind of thing, once we start to get more exciting prospects in the system, I honestly think that people are going to come back. And then also all of those fans from the golden era of the Sharks, if you call it, they're all going to have kids and they're all
Yep.
going to want to bring their kids to the game. And it's like, that's how you build a generational team. And I agree. Hopefully with the turnaround of the team, it's going to be full houses again at some
Yep.
point, and not just because of a Golden State Warriors jersey sale or jersey
And not
giveaway,
just for my job security. All
and
right.
not
So
just for Shang's job, or the fact that we don't want to have to cover
the Charlotte
the
Checkers or the Bay Area
Rochester
Panther
Americans.
or
No, okay, no.
the
I'm just
non-existent Stockton Heat.
Stockton Heat.
We'll form the Stockton Heat fan club.
Ooh, that's a good idea. That'll get so many,
Don't
so
forget the
many
Heat.
tens of listeners. So many tens of listeners. All right, let's go on. We got two more, and then we're all done, guys.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you guys for listening to all this. Hopefully, this podcast has been a therapeutic
I'm having a
for
great time.
everybody. Christopher McDonald asked, essentially, is this the true version of 2023-24 Sharks, or is there a next gear that I started laughing? We haven't seen yet. Because what is that next gear? And there is a next gear, but
it's first gear.
Yeah, it may not be much though. Let's be honest, but yeah, I mean the Sharks are not going to end the season. What is the rate of this right now? 0-77-7. Okay, so that's an 84 game schedule, but they're not going to end the season.
Yeah,
0-77-5. They're going to win some games, not a lot. But yeah, so they definitely. I mean, what? Okay, I guess the better way to answer it is and let's go back to a question that we answered earlier about the over under. So how many points do you think the Sharks end up with?
48.
48? Okay.
Yeah, that's my answer. 48.
Okay.
And honestly, all my predictions except for a couple have been wrong so far, including,
of course, all predictions are wrong.
Including, I said the Sharks would win their next game, and they had a historic loss, which was my best prediction I've ever created. I was like, oh, they're gonna win their next game, Vancouver.
I'm actually I'm gonna look this up because I wonder in the cap era, or maybe we can go back to the show. I'm just gonna look in the cap era because it's simpler. What is the like? I think the Avs may have had 48 points, right? Are they the worst single season record?
Or Buffalo?
Oh, maybe Buffalo. I think you might be around Buffalo. Let's quick look at. I pull this up at. Oh, okay. I can't. Yeah, don't count the shortened seasons too. So a full 82 game season. The worst record is no. I think it is Colorado. Wait, let me see. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I have too many of the COVID seasons here mixed into the stats, but it is Colorado with 48 points in 2016-17. Yeah, so so you're saying that the Sharks are going to match that record. Detroit was pretty close, but they played 71 games in the season that was shortened by COVID and had 39 points. So they were definitely in the race for that. But anyway, I think they cleared 50. Okay. But I mean, I'm an optimist. I predict the Sharks at 70 points, and I know people are laughing. I've seen people comment on that. I honestly, again, had no backup for that reasoning. I just said I had a gut feeling. So yeah, obviously my gut feelings are shit, but like I wasn't strenuously arguing that this was a 70-point team though. That's all I'm saying. So
yeah, and even then, that's still a really shitty non-playoff team. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think they managed to clear 50, and they stopped getting embarrassed like this, like on a nightly basis. Obviously, there's 71 games left, so even if they turn the ship around, so to speak, and get to 50 points, they're still gonna get shit kicked a couple times along the way, right? But just won't be. I mean, there's been like 4 games this year where they've been absolutely blown out. The Tampa Bay game, obviously, that they lost 6-0. In addition to these 2 that just happened, but also too underrated is the Carolina game at home that they lost 6-3. That they really could have lost 9-3 if it wasn't for Mackenzie Blackwood. So those are the 4 games that they have been absolutely pummeled in, and that's what 11 games. You can maybe count the Colorado game where Blackwood made 51 saves, but I'll give that a pass because they got the point, and I think they played hard in that game. They weren't quite as lost in some of these other games, but anyway. So yeah. So I think they'll clear 50. You say 48. So
48, right on the money.
So all right. Let's end here with SJ Shorkey. I like your name. That's a funny one. And thank you also, SJ. I noticed that you comment a lot on the site. So thank you again for doing that. I really appreciate that. And everyone listening, I really love comments on the sites. I am trying to build that up. It's one of my many things I need to do more of. And so please comment, and I will try to do my best to reply and be in on it. I know I don't do as good a job as I want at that, but I will say, just so everyone knows, that the first place I'm likely to comment over anything is going to be on my on the website over X or Twitter. Sometimes on X or Twitter I'll answer a few questions just because they're just direct questions. And so yeah, if you ask me a direct question on the site, chances are I'll answer it. And so anyway, so please, I encourage you guys to do that. I really appreciate it, those of you who do. But anyway, SJ's question to wrap up is, what if Hasso decides he doesn't want to go to this level of suck in his twilight years and cleans house or sells the team? Now, we talked about the cleaning house part. So
Sure.
Hasso selling the team. And so, like I said, we've run the entire gamut of the entire organization, their job security, from media, me, John McCarthy, to David Quinn, to Mike Grier, to Jonathan Becher, to Hasso Plattner, to the entire Sharks as a concept in San Jose.
Jeez, these losses make you think. They mainly
They
make you
make you think.
question
Yeah.
a lot.
The entire existence of the Sharks in San Jose. Yeah.
I honestly was really deep in thought after many of these losses.
But anyway, with Hasso, as far as I understand it, and no one ever talks with Hasso besides Jonathan Becher, apparently, so we don't really know. But he loves the Sharks. He does care. He has always allowed the teams to spend to the cap. Maybe even this year they're pretty close to the cap with this god awful team because they took on more salary in the Carlson trade. Anyway, so he cares. So I don't think he will. I think that he's going to ride this out, and he hired Mike Grier. I think he believes in Mike Grier's plan. At least on this podcast, we agree that Mike Grier's plan is a good, valid plan. It's just a question of the execution, right? And so if Mike can, it's been 11 awful games, awful games. Awful games overall. But if Mike can stick to execution along with David Quinn and the players for the rest of the season, and again, it's just to be competitive and get a high draft pick. If you can do that, then slowly but surely, and of course, the next part of it is hitting your draft picks, right? If they start to do that, then they're gonna get back to a good place, and that good place will make Hasso happy, and that's where Hasso's trying to get to. And so I'm not seeing it now. I mean, it could happen, right? Like, let's say worst case scenario, this team keeps bottoming out. They're horrible. Maybe Mike survives when we get to that 2025-26 plan that I talked about, that kind of area where that's where you start to spend some money. Let's say you get to that point and you find out that, man, William Eklund is just a 30-point player. A lot of these other guys aren't very good. Shakir Mukhamadulin's a top four defenseman on a bad team. He's not actually a top four defenseman. Things like that, right? You've just learned all these young pieces that you accrued you've drafted poorly. You've had faith in the wrong guys, and and in that case, right? And it's really, really ugly. And if the things I just said, if that's what happens, then you're in for more years of darkness. Maybe that will make Hasso reconsider for sure. I'm not sure. I don't know, but something like that though, maybe it could. But short of something like that though, I mean, yeah, I think as far as everything I've heard, he loves the Sharks. He wants to see them succeed, and I think has realized that it's not going to come through sticking with the last vestiges of the Doug Wilson era, that they've got to do something new and something painful and rebuilding. And as we're seeing it, they're doing it. And so can Mike Grier stick the landing, execute? If he does, then the Hasso is going to be thrilled.
Yeah, I have no comments. Not going to happen. Sharks are here forever. That's my answer. It's time to go. Time to go to bed, everybody. It has been a long episode. Thank you, everybody, for
your
all
questions.
Your
comments. Thank you for sticking through all this with us on the podcast, on the website, for subscribing through. Apparently, we didn't notice. Apparently, the leanest years in Sharks history.
Yeah, we really picked a time to start this. We couldn't do height of the playoffs,
like during the reverse sweep,
or oof. It was a rough time, but not as rough as this.
Not as rough as this, though. Yeah. So
no.
Anyway. You thought those were bad times.
Yeah. And Jod V, you did get a banner. I added you one right there.
Oh, nice. Hey, there you go.
This is for you, Jod V. All right. Goodbye, everybody.